Yeah. Good morning, everybody. First 2024 meeting. This is a hybrid meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We start off with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Stugog Island, Rama, Osalay, and Georgina Island First Nations. The Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. With that, I'll ask everybody to make sure your cell phones are off or muted, so we don't disturb the meeting. And I'll remind council of the declaration of peculiar interest if it arises. You can declare it then. If something pops up. So we have the minutes here from the regular council meeting of May 7th. If all's in order, I'll look for a motion to receive those minutes. Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we're going to move into a public meeting, a zoning bylaw amendment meeting. I'll look for motion to move into that. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. So this is a statutory meeting held under Section 39 of the Planning Act. Any person may attend the public meeting and or make verbal or written representation either in support or opposition of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please keep your video off and microphone muted during the meeting until you're invited to comment regarding a planning matter. If a person or public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen before the proposed zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the persons or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. If you wish to be notified of the passing of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make written requests to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. With that, I'll turn it over to Arya.
Through to you, Mayor Martin. Good morning, members of council and the public. So the purpose and effect of this report is to present to council proposed amendments to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's comprehensive zoning bylaw, number 1995-42 as amended, which, if enacted, would essentially introduce a number of housekeeping amendments or housekeeping changes to the document itself. Most of these items are pertaining to shipping containers and the use and regulation of shipping containers on private property. So the recommendation is that, subject to any new information or public comments received prior to at the public meeting currently, council proceed to pass the bylaw or pass the draft bylaw as presented. So just a little bit about background information regarding this is township staff have previously presented to Township Council with a number of reports regarding this matter, together with a draft bylaw for discussion and hopeful direction. Most recently, council did pass a resolution to prepare a bylaw in advance of a public meeting, preferably in the summer months. So staff are prepared to move forward with the proposed amendments in order to permit the use of shipping containers as accessory structures in certain and subject to site-specific regulations and provisions. So as directed, a revised bylaw, draft bylaw amendment has since been prepared from township staff, which accompanies this report. Notice for the statutory public meeting was circulated to all applicable agencies. It was also posted over on the township's social media outlets and website, as well as the Rail newsletter, just for ease of circulation. So the first amendment is a new subsection being added to the general provisions of the zoning bylaw, directly below section 4.1.1, which is entitled portable garage structures. The new subsection will bear the title shipping containers. A new definition is being created under the subsection entitled again shipping containers. And the new subsection will have the effect of permitting shipping containers in the following zones. The rural zone, the agricultural zone, all of the commercial zones, as well as all of the industrial zones. So shipping containers shall not be permitted in any other zone for which is not mentioned above. So that would be in the seasonal residential zone, for instance, in the island residential zone, as well as the residential overall, like in the hamlet area, there's residential type 1, residential type 2, 3. They would not be permitted in those areas. So in the rural and agricultural zones, a maximum of 1 shipping container shall be permitted per 2.5 hectares, and that roughly translates to about 6.1 acres of land. If a property owner has more than 5 acres or hectares, I should say, they will be permitted to have 1 more shipping container. However, lots in these zones are not permitted to have any more than 2 shipping containers, regardless of the size of the parcel, unless they obviously initiate a pre-consultation for a planning application. In the local commercial, which is the C1 zone, in the commercial tourist, as well as the commercial trailer park zones, so that's C1, C2, C3, a maximum of 2 shipping containers shall be permitted. And finally, in the industrial zones, a maximum of 3 shipping containers shall be permitted. In all of the above zones, apart from the industrial zones, shipping containers are required to be placed in the rear yard. This is more or less just to make sure that they're tucked away. All property owners who use shipping containers, regardless of the zone, shall be required to maintain the structure in good condition, free of rust, and painted to remove any visible markings, whatever graffiti is on the structure. The regulations as prescribed in the rural zone and the agricultural zone also require that the shipping containers be adequately buffered from public views. And that's more or less just any concerns people have with regards to if the shipping container shows up in a front yard, then that would be contrary to the bylaw. It has to be in the rear yard and tucked away and not unsightly. Furthermore, under no circumstances shall the stacking of shipping containers shall be permitted. And each container or shipping container is to be used solely for the purpose of storage purposes. So it wouldn't be for human habitation or using it as a bunkie, none of that stuff. And all other regulations of the zoning bylaw as it applies to our current zoning bylaw still apply. That's lot coverage, high watermark, setback, all of that. So the second amendment is more or less a minor amendment, and it's being proposed to section 4.6 of the bylaw. To permit the use of shipping containers on a limited basis for up to 12 months for construction purposes. The amendment will provide property owners with the ability to essentially utilize shipping containers on a limited basis in order to fulfill their construction needs in a timely manner. This is just as if someone was to obtain a building permit for a house, they're permitted to have a shipping container on a limited basis, maximum 12 months. Just so that they can, construct the house sturdy and remove any or keep storage of any kind, whatever it is, equipment, they can keep it inside the storage container. And finally, the third amendment is the intent, and it's actually to section 4.32 of the zoning bylaw, which prohibits human habitation and storage of goods, materials, animals, or equipment. So the intent of section 4.32 is to not permit the use of any truck, bus, cargo, or freight container, recreational motorhome, or recreational any type of trailer to be used for storing of goods, materials, animals, and human habitation. Unless it's in the trailer park zone, which is in the C3 zone, then I believe that a trailer would be permitted. However, in all other zones, 4.32 applies. A majority of this section is to remain unaltered. The only change would be to remove the words cargo and freight container from the previous from the section 4.32, and this would essentially give the effect to for section 4.1.2 to govern shipping containers. So basically, we're removing the words cargo and freight container from this section and solely relying on 4.1.2 to govern what happens with shipping containers. Finally, the entire document, or the zoning bylaw, has been renumbered and reordered in order to implement these changes, all of which is respectfully submitted for council's hopeful direction, the approval. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll have to council if there's any questions for Ari for clarification on this. It is a housekeeping amendment, but Long overdue, I think. So, any questions for you?
Through Mr. Mayor, someone in here says this is the draft bylaw pending, comments from council or the public. Did we receive any public comments on this?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Deputy Mayor. No, not at the moment. We haven't received any comments. However, we did receive correspondence to attend the public meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, so some of these things here, like there is a lot of them out there. I don't know how the enforcement's gonna go on the ones that are there already. Is there any grandfathering or anything like that, or does it just be taken care of on a?
Through to you, Mayor. Yeah, I would say that essentially a building permit would be required for these structures. Any grandfathering has to be determined through the legality of the structure. So obtaining a permit would make it a legal structure. Therefore, if one was to some way prove that the structure had existed back in 1960, 1970, then there would be consideration for non-conformity. However, permits are still required for these structures.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Doherty.
Well, so we're gonna, if you have a shipping container on your property now, you're gonna have to apply for a building permit.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I believe so, yes. So the zoning bylaw just gives the regulation to use them as a permitted use. They still would be subject to building. That would be my opinion.
Okay, and there's no mention of seasonal residential in here. You briefly mentioned it, but there's nothing. So I know it doesn't cover the hamlet, but there's nothing in it, right?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, and to you, Councilor Doherty, that is correct. So in settlement areas like Havelock, you mostly have R1 to R2, R3 zones, which permit residential structures, houses, duplexes, semi-detached. They would not be permitted inside the hamlet areas. However, I should mention that if it's a rural property, if the property is zoned rural and they are above 2.5 hectares, they would be permitted a shipping container. But I don't think there's any property in our hamlet area in Havelock that currently has 2.5 acres or hectares.
Okay, just a point of clarity then is seasonal residential properties are not allowed to have shipping containers on them. That's the way the bylaws are written. That's and why is that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question through you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, these cottage properties, now most of these cottage properties are in rural areas next to lakes. I would be of the opinion that, based off of my analysis, there had been consideration to include them in the seasonal residential zone. However, these properties are more or less supposed to be used on a cottage kind of basis. And so providing a shipping container may kind of give the indication that the person may want to use the property for more permanent. I mean, they could still apply for a planning application to have their zoning changed to allow for them in the seasonal residential zone. However, when I was doing my analysis also, portable garage structures were also considered in our zoning bylaw, not on seasonal residential zones, which gives me the indication that past council as well as this council would rather not intensify these shoreline areas that are kind of sensitive in terms of environmental features and wetlands and lakes.
Well, the difficulty is that if they're seasonal and they're 6 months, there's a storage issue and maybe their lot's not as large, but they need storage area. And these are very good for that in rural area for weathering and we have some people like they help themselves in the north as well. So it helps for those. Good luck.
Okay, so there is a recommendation here. Oh, there's no opportunity for, unless your delegation. Is this, oh, this is a public, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. I'm in favor, all opposed. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Frank DiFrancesco. Question through you, Mayor Aria. Shipping container, the definition of shipping container. Are we talking about those big steel boxes?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. I would say yes. Now the definition in the zoning bylaw, I don't have the draft bylaw in front of me, but it does give a pretty accurate description of what these structures are to be. They can be anywhere from freight containers to multimodal cargo freights, but more or less it's what we kind of see on backs of trucks and there shouldn't be things, yeah.
Okay. To me, a shipping container could be anything. I mean, a matchbox ships matches. It's shipping something. So I think we have to take a step back and fall under the other laws that have been put in place. When we look at the building code that just recently got amended, they allow for structures up to 160 square feet to be built without a permit. So what happens with those big steel boxes, a 20-foot one that it measures 20 by 8, which is 160 square feet?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I would say what happens with
Yes,
those
what would
structures?
happen?
So if one was to prop up on a property,
That's right.
well, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not an expert on the Ontario Building Code. My analysis and expertise comes from the Planning Act. I would say that these structures, I mean, subject to the Ontario Building Code, they may or may not require permits. I'm not entirely sure on that. However, that still doesn't excuse landowners from neglecting the zoning.
So our chief building officials here, maybe you can help with that one there, Travis.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would echo Arya's comments. So if it's less than 15 square meters and used for storage only, it may not require a building permit. However, it has to comply with zoning.
So in the zoning, through you, Mayor, in zoning, is one allowed to construct as many storage containers, as storage units as they want, as long as they fall under the 160 square feet?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I didn't understand that question.
If I had a 10-acre property and I wanted to build 10 160 square foot storage units, would I be able to do that?
As in sheds. You mean as in sheds?
As sheds, as storage sheds?
So the zoning bylaw essentially doesn't regulate how many accessory structures you can have on a property. I mean, it would be subject to lot coverage.
Mhm.
It would be subject to if the
Setbacks.
structure is being proposed, yeah, setbacks, you still have to obtain permits from the Conservation Authority, you still have to obtain permits from the township, and it has to meet zoning bylaw. So if whatever is happening on the property that is contrary to the zoning bylaw, then the municipality does have some leeway in enforcing.
Does the percentage of lot coverage come into that?
Absolutely.
So you can't put as many as you like, you would have to abide by the
Well,
lot coverage.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say that in this amendment right here, shipping containers on rural lots, they're only permitted to have 2 at the most, unless they come for planning application.
Not shipping containers though, not
Shipping
sheds.
container, not sheds, yeah.
Sheds, they can essentially, it would be lot coverage and it would be lot line setbacks and all that stuff. So if a person has like 100-acre parcel, I mean, lot coverage would be pretty difficult to hit. It's max.
So in essence, they could put as many storage sheds as they like without a permit, as long as they're below the 15 square meters or 160 square feet.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, as long as it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and the regulations, then permits would be available.
Permits would be available?
Yes,
Sorry, can you clarify that? What do you mean available?
if you meet the zoning bylaw and it meets, like whatever proposed development meets the zoning bylaw, permits would be available for it. If it's a structure that's less than, I think that's a conversation we should have at the township as opposed to a public meeting, because this sounds like it's very site specific.
No,
So
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get clarification because the building code allows for structures up to 160 square feet, as long as they don't have any plumbing or there's other provisions and they're used for storage. So we see a lot of these big steel boxes or shipping containers that are 20 feet by 8. So I'm wondering, does that mean, is that the same thing as a shed that's built out of plywood and wood?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, I think that the zoning bylaw has an intent and you can't just say that a box or a shed is a shipping. No, that would not be the intent. The intent of the bylaw is to give reasonable grounds for what structures are permitted on properties and what isn't. And I mean, we can split hairs and talk about technicalities of 200 square feet or like if it's made out of, I don't know, boxes, whatever. But if it's a shipping container and it meets the definition of the zoning bylaw, then those are the regulations that would apply to it. With regards to the 250 square feet, I don't know. I'm not an expert in the Ontario building code. This is a zoning bylaw amendment, not a building code amendment.
So if you're gonna put a bunch of sheds or containers on your property and it's a rural property and you're gonna use it for storage for like a business, it wouldn't fit in the zoning bylaw. It would be outside of what your property was intended for.
Of course.
So,
Well, that there are a lot of rural properties and farmers that need storage, whether it be for animals or whatever. And a shipping container, the 20-foot steel box is very economical, fast. You just drop it. Not to mention environmentally friendly. We all know we're trying to save the world and do whatever we can to recycle. A lot of these boxes get shipped here one time and then they cannot be reused. So they just either get trashed or they get sold for a very good price and they can easily be dropped on a property and be used as a storage shed. So I'm just hoping that we don't lose that opportunity to reuse these structures and to give our community an easy way to get a storage. And we just lump in these steel boxes with this zoning bylaw.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I absolutely agree with that. And also, so the regulations of the zoning bylaw are pretty much to like control where it can be, like no one can just plop it anywhere they want. It's supposed to meet those zoning regulations. So I would agree with you definitely. The zoning bylaw essentially is a document to facilitate orderly development, or else people could put 50 garages on a property or like build in a wetland, build in environmentally protected sensitive areas. But the regulations here make it a little bit more feasible for people to have these structures for storage purposes.
Through Mayor, I understand, Arya, but I heard that we're going to allow the containers to be at the rear of the property. So we don't want to see a steel box because I guess some people don't like a steel box. But in essence, someone could construct a box made out of skids right on their front lawn, so long as they're within the setback, and that would be permissible. So where do we draw the line here? Some people like steel, some people can paint it, some people can flat it. Why are we trying to, again, split hairs? If it meets the criteria of 160 square feet and it's allowed to be constructed without a permit, then we shouldn't be trying to, I guess, control that. Now, if it is a container that is even with smaller than 160 square feet and it's being used to actually ship stuff in and out where there's tractor trailers coming in, then no, that should not be allowed unless it falls within the zoning.
so when we dealt with this last time, one of the things that I don't see in this, but one of the concerns was with shipping containers is what was in them when they came over here. Was it radioactive stuff? Was it, so it was revolved around the fire department. I know the ones we have at the 6th line have a suppression system in there, so the firemen don't have to go in there to deal with it. That being said, how do we control what was in these containers before they are used? If it was something that, if it catches fire and it's toxic, how do we deal with that side of these things? I don't see anything in here for that.
Yeah, through to you, Mr. Mayor. That's a great question. I would say that they're still subject to building permits. And essentially, if they meet the definition of a shipping container, what's inside the structure, I don't think we can regulate that. More like they come kind of empty anyway. However, subject to a building permit, I would assume that one could walk inside and see what's inside of it.
So. Okay, yeah, there's lots of questions around these things. You're right, it's an economical way of dealing with storage sometimes, but I think the intent of the zoning bylaw is to kind of, like you say, control them. Too much control, I don't know. It'll be up to council here to, there is a recommendation here, I don't know. The recommendation is subject to any new information or public comments received prior to or at such sort of public meeting. Council proceed to pass the draft bylaw. And the balance of the report is received. So what's council's thoughts? You had a question?
Can I have a few comments?
Yeah.
So, my name's Rod. I'm a seasonal resident. I'm here most of the time, though. I spend the winter, even though I don't keep my place open with plumbing and stuff. Shipping containers are, I don't know why they're being omitted from the seasonal properties. Cottagers need storage as well. We need safe storage. We need road-improved storage, affordable storage. These containers are phenomenal. Trees can hit them. They won't blow over to 5,000 pounds. If you keep them off the ground about 6 inches, you have no condensation moisture inside whatsoever. As far as what's been in them, you can easily do that when you purchase them. You've got to deal with the right agent. You walk in them. The only thing that's wood, the floors are wood. They're hardwood, they're about that thick. That's where you can tell if they've had chemicals or food spilt in them and the smell. That's the biggest thing. You can also buy one-way containers that are actually, they have more venting. They have grease fittings on the hinges. They come with the lockbox already welded on. They have lower handles so that they can be used easily in and out. They're actually being marketed as a one-way for storage because they're so clean. Like my buddy bought one of the things meant, right? It's like you could live in it, not that you live in it, but I just like to know why, like, you know, as far as I'm concerned, as long as the shipping container is 100 feet or 150 feet back, which I think would, with Crow Valley, I think it's 150 feet from the high water mark. You don't need a permit. As long as you can have it back 150 feet away from the site of the lake, I don't see why we wouldn't be allowed to have them.
Can I get your name for the minutes?
Roderick Donker.
Thank you. Okay.
So, I mean, I'm an advocate of them. I think they're great. I don't know why, you know, if everyone else is allowed to have them, you know, we are paying taxes. We're spending a lot of money in this community in the off season. And so I don't see why we wouldn't be allowed to have them. As long as it obviously has to fall, you know, we don't want to dump it right by the lake. You know, we don't want to have it as a boathouse, you know, we want to have them behind, out of sight, so we can store our stuff. That's all I can say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I entirely agree. We don't have a whole lot of properties that are like over 2.5 hectares large that are in the seasonal residential zone. I believe past councils, and I would assume that this council as well, keeps the tradition of not allowing the intensification of shoreline properties. I mean, they're environmentally sensitive areas, especially when they're close to lakes and whatnot. And a lot of these cottage properties are in the seasonal residential zone very deficient. They're less than, so that still doesn't mean that you can't amend the zoning bylaw like on a site specific basis to allow for them. That you just need a planning application.
Okay, so you allow somebody to come in and dig up shoreline and blast out rock, bring rock trucks in and spend like $2 million to build a cottage, but you're not allowed to have a little shipping container back to the cottage,
Through to you, Mr.
right?
Mayor.
Like this is, what you just told me is kind of, you know, I just renovated my cottage and I kept it old school, I kept it small. Called it Taj Mahal. And so those guys came, there's a lot of places on the lake that's happened. They've come in and destroyed the shoreline, brought in tons of rock, chipped away all summer with the big jackhammer on the excavator. And so I don't get what you need, like how can I damage the property with a shipping container that's airtight, watertight, road approved, not filled with chemicals.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, essentially, there was an amendment back in 2019 for portable garages, those like tarp structures.
Yeah, which are garbage and fall apart. And go
They
over.
essentially were disqualified from being placed in the seasonal residential zone. And I'm just
Yeah.
pretty much bringing the same tradition.
Well, I think if you understood shipping containers a little more, you know, as long as, again, I understand there's an issue with people, they don't like the sight of them, I can understand that, but as long as your neighbors are cool with it, and it's out of sight, there, you can plant trees around them, plant hedges around them, you can paint them. I don't see why we wouldn't be allowed to have them. We need storage as well. I mean, I need secure storage. I don't have security system, I don't have internet all year, I don't have cameras over there, I don't have neighbors that are there that can keep an eye on my property.
So I think what you're saying though is this, how many hectares? You said 2.5 hectares or whatever. You're saying no matter what the size of a seasonal property, you think you should be allowed to have them on there?
I would think as long as they're out of sight and they're far back enough from the lake to appease the conservation authority, I don't see why it wouldn't be allowed. I mean, I'm seeing people, there's all kinds of stuff going on that people have, like they're all little properties that have bunkies and garages, like there's cottages out there, the garage is bigger than the cottage. And they're not over 2.5 hectares. I mean, I'm respectfully, I think it's a little, you have to, I can understand if it's super small and tight and it's jammed in the corner somewhere and, you can't get cars by and it's a safety issue if it's blocking a turn on a road or something. Obviously. There's obviously situations, right? Individual situations, but I don't see why you completely omit them completely to say no.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and it's one of the tough things that we have to deal with as
Yeah.
far as how you feel. I guarantee you there's somebody else that feels totally opposite.
Oh, no, I
No
understand.
matter what we do, it's not gonna be right, because
For sure, I know, but
But go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I think this is a topic that needs to be discussed a little bit more of it in here. I agree with kind of what we have here as a draft, but I think I'll just suggest the council. A few comments that have been brought up here today in terms of the seasonal residential. This is something maybe we have to take a closer look at. That's why I kind of asked Ari if we received any comments, because I don't know. I know sometimes they're slow coming in from the lakes and whatnot, but now that we've had this meeting and obviously it's gonna hit. Maybe it's better to let this kind of go around the community for a week or two. We can get some feedback, a little better feedback, because I'm hearing more of what this gentleman here, sorry, Mr. Donker is saying. I know 10 to 15 years ago, yes, there was a hesitancy towards having these around lakes. It was more of an uppity thing, I think, than anything, but I think the way society is going and the economy is going, that people just can't afford to, build new structures like they used to, say 20 years ago. It's just not affordable. So for people like you or even I, this is somewhat reason have a closer look at it. And I respect that all your point are around, obviously we're near water here, and we want to respect, our lakes and rivers and not do anything to damage them. But at the same time, I think these have been proven to be pretty safe.
Oh, yeah,
So.
Okay, so what we have here, the recommendation was subject to any new information, so I'm gonna suggest that we defer this to get some more input. I think that's what we need, is to get some more input on the comments of today. Is there any other further comments from the audience? Or online? Not seeing any, so
thanks.
I'll look for a motion that we defer. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried.
Pending further comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll look for a motion to move out of the public meeting back into the written council meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we're going to move into Committee of Adjustment. For motion to put Deputy Mayor Webb in the chair. Moved by Councillor Doherty, second, Councillor Flagler. All in favor? That's carried. Take over.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. Committee of Adjustment, call this public meeting to order and remind the members of the committee, disclose the requirement to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof if the occasion arises. This public meeting will be held under section 45 of the Planning Act and its regulations. And we'll now have Aria present just one report today. Smith.
Through to you, through to the chair, I should say. Let's say mayor. So the subject property is, the property owners are Mike and Laura Smith, municipal address of 203 Fire Route 68, 66, with a roll number of 1531-010-005-2300 in part lot 6, concession 5. And the property is roughly 0.6 hectares, which translates to roughly around 0.4 acres. So the purpose of this minor variance application is as follows, and all of these reliefs are to the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's comprehensive zoning bylaw. So number one is to seek relief from sections 4.1C as well as E2, having the following effects: one, increasing the maximum height of an accessory building or structure from 4.5 meters, which is roughly 15 feet, to 6.7 meters, 22 feet. And as well as reducing the minimum required rear yard setback from 3 meters, which translates to about 10 feet, to 2.4 meters, which is 8 feet. And the final one, or the final form of relief, is seeking relief from section 10.2.1G of the zoning bylaw for increasing the maximum lot coverage from 15% to 16%, which would be a change of 1%. And these reliefs are to permit the following: one, and it's only one, development of a new accessory building or structure in the form of a detached garage with additional space above for storage purposes. So the recommendation is that minor variance application A-05-24 be approved with the following conditions: that the 20-day appeal period lapse prior to the issuance of a building permit, that the location of the proposed accessory structure and the required setbacks be staked by an Ontario land surveyor prior to any construction, that a building permit be issued within 18 months of the approval of this application, and that the balance of this report be received. So just by way of analysis on the property, or just background, I guess, there's currently an existing recreational dwelling unit situated on a subject lot, and the property is roughly around, the structure is roughly around 164 square meters, which is again 1,770 square feet. An assortment of accessory structures inclusive of a sleeping cabin as well as a frame shed are also present on the subject lot. According to MPAC, which is the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation's data, the existing recreational dwelling unit was created sometime in 1978. A previous minor variance, which came to the Committee of Adjustment in 2017 for an addition to the existing recreational dwelling unit was approved. The minor variance was accompanied by a scoped environmental impact study, which identified no concerns with the proposed development. So township staff have determined that the subject application essentially meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, as well as meeting provincial policy, and subject to any new information received today or at the hearing, it is the recommendation that this minor variance application be approved.
Thank you very much for the report, Arya. Is the applicant or their agent present with us today? Online, maybe? Not hearing anyone. So is there anyone present here today wishing to speak or online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Second time, anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Hearing no comments, I'll open up the floor. Any questions or a motion from the members of the committee? Cameron?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. I'd make a motion that we approve this application.
So motion approved from Mayor Martin, the seconder, Councillor Doherty. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's passed. That concludes the reports for today. Thank you very much, Arya. And I'll now take a motion to adjourn the public meeting and turn to our regular council meeting. By Councillor Clement, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? It's passed.
Right, thank you. So we're gonna move into planning report. Ari, you're still in the hot seat, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So the purpose of this report is to obtain a recommendation of council to submit to the Peterborough County Land Division regarding consent application B-14-24. And the recommendation is that council advise Peterborough County Land Division that the township endorses an application for consent for lot addition, consent application filed on February 6, 2024, and bearing the assessment roll number of 1531-010-006-13301 to be added to a parcel of land that also bears the assessment roll number 1531-010-006-13200. And this application was submitted on behalf of David Skollick by Vivian Graspy. And it would be subject to the following conditions. Number one, that a merger agreement for the parcel to be added to be provided to the township. And that's the only condition essentially. Just by way of a background, so the applicants currently own the municipal address of 22 Fire Route 57C. I won't read the assessment roll number again. This parcel of land referred to as the retained parcel comprises approximately 2.1 hectares, which translates to 5.4 acres of land, with approximately 690 feet of frontage along Crow River. The severed parcel is comprised of roughly 0.05 hectares, so that conversion would be 0.12 acres, so it's clearly deficient. It's a lot that's deficient, intended to be added to the southern property and having a municipal address of 67 Fire Route 57C. The benefiting lands, which is 67 Fire Route 57C, is currently comprised of roughly 0.19 acres with approximately 32 meters of frontage along Crow River. The application now before council was filed with Peterborough County Land Division in February of 2024, and a preliminary severance review commentary was provided as well. So just by way of analysis, we have township staff has determined that it meets the intent, or the consent application meets the intent of the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's official plan, as well as the zoning bylaw. And I'll give a little bit of update on the zoning bylaw. So both the retained parcel and the lot being added to maintain the seasonal residential zone. Residential uses are contemplated in the seasonal residential zone. As previously mentioned, the lot addition, the lot being added to into, I guess, further conformity with the zoning bylaws. It's currently deficient. They're adding a little bit of land to the property. Now it's bringing it into conformity with the zoning bylaw. There's also no new development being proposed at the moment. The subject application, as is, would essentially maintain the spirit and intent of the zoning bylaw. And that concludes my report to council.
Okay, thank you. So is there any questions for the rest of that? Go ahead, Councilor Jordan.
Gee, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what page it is, or for me, it's on page 65. So 20, the one parcel is designated 22. Is that the retained parcel?
Sorry, is it identified up here?
We're not on the same page.
Not on the same page?
Oh, one before, I think.
Basically, it's the red portion. So it would be this portion right here that would be added to here. I know it's a little bit confusing with the line.
Can we go back?
Back one.
No.
That's not the one.
It's page 65 on the agenda. You're page 66 on the agenda.
Okay.
I just can't match the two up just to see where it is. So it's going to attach, 22 is going to take a piece off and attach it to 57.
To 67. So essentially 67, that little triangular piece is being added to it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, to square it off. Exactly.
Right, good.
So the recommendation is that we advise the land division that we endorse this application. Does anybody want to move that? Moved by Councilor Clement. Seconder, Councilor Doherty. Any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Next item on here is top up and close.
Mr. Mayor, so the purpose of this report is the request of council to enact, is this the lot 30 and 31? Correct, yeah. Good. So the purpose of this report is to request of council to enact a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey that portion of road allowance bisecting a property having civic address of 390 Fire Route 87. And again, we can see it on the On the reference plan up here, it's between lots 30 and 31, concession 8 in the Methuen ward. So the recommendation is that council pass the necessary bylaw to stop up, close and convey that portion of township unopened road allowance between lots 30 and 31, concession 8 under the bylaw section of this agenda. So by way of a background on this, just as a refresher, so at the February 20th, 2024 open council session, a resolution was passed that the unopened road allowance bisecting the subject property be declared surplus. And further, that the requisite bylaw to stop up, close and convey that portion of unopened road allowance between lots 30 and 31 be presented for the adoption at a future council session. And this would be essentially that future council session. Real Corp Management are the owners of the lands, and they've expressed a desire to purchase the unopened road allowance identified on Schedule A of the attached bylaw, and they would be bisecting their property from, as we can see, Jack Lake. So the owners have provided an appraised value of the subject lands as well, which was attached to this report. In accordance with the above motion, staff requests authorization to commence process to stop up and close and convey the subject road allowance to the private property owners. And by way of a financial impact, that the sale of the described property would result in payment to the township. And that would be the conclusion.
Thank you. So we stop up and close things we take pretty seriously, and we try to make sure that we're not messing something up. And I think that's why we brought it back. And it does show that the property goes from water to water. There's no access for road anyways on this one. So it's just a piece of property in between peninsula. So anyways, the recommendation is here that we pass the necessary bylaw to stop up and close this piece of road allowance.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, you're making the motion? Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we move the recommendation. Seconded, Councillor Doherty. Any other questions?
The general question. When we're dealing with these areas, I think this is Methuen Lake. Do you guys have an idea of how many road allowances that we still have open for these lakes? Mary, you just referenced it in terms of keeping some of them open for future, right? In terms of how much we're going to sell everything off and close everything down to the lakes. But I mean, in terms of planning or the building, like, so for Methuen Lake, Belmont Lake, Round Lake, do we have an assessment of, how many access points we have at each one of these lakes?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say that we don't have that analysis completed. However, that would definitely be something that we can.
I think, yeah, thank you for that. And I think just the Res Council moving forward is something good to have. And because then my next question was going to be, if so, do we have a limit in terms of, you know what I mean? And maybe that's something that I said we need to start looking at, because in the short time I've been here, buildings done nothing but increase. So it's probably only going to be the same going forward. So I think good planning would be to, identify which ones we want to keep open and not sell off or have people close off, right? So
as the policy is written right now, I think it comes to that we make sure that they're not accessible. Like some of these road allowances are like off a cliff or, so that we are doing our due diligence there, but you're right. It would be nice to know how many there is, but that's what I meant about the careful part of it. We are trying to do what we can, but maybe some more information in the future would help.
And I understand your point, but even to that, while it might not be ideal now, and there might come a day when, we might have to take that cliff or whatever and modify it into something which would cost money. And I don't want to get into a situation like that. If we've got 3 or 4 now, that if we just, did the right planning, we wouldn't go down that road. So,
okay,
thank you.
All right. So we have a mover and second. Go ahead, Councilor Doherty.
So you, just point of clarity, there are 2 pieces of land there.
Right. Through to you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, essentially the one on the left was already kind of decided and declared and the bylaw was passed. This would be for the current one, which would be the right.
So the other one is through then.
The other one's through.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Great. The next item is a purchase of another road allowance. Maria, go ahead.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So the purpose and effect of this report is to present to council planning analysis completed by the township, by township staff to assess a request to purchase a township unopened road allowance, which is adjacent to a vacant parcel of land on Jack Lake. I have provided a site sketch up here just in case anyone wants to make reference to it. And the recommendation is that council receive this report and agree in principle to the request from property owners or the property owners to stop up, close and convey that portion of unopened road allowance adjacent to part lot 24, concession 10 with assessment roll number 1531-010-007-67701. The second recommendation is that council staff provide the property owners with the necessary requirements or a checklist, I should say, in order to fulfill the stopping up and closing of the unopened road allowance. By way of a background on this matter, in March of 2024, township staff received a formal request by the property owners of an island parcel. It's a vacant island parcel currently at the moment. Their names are John and Kathy Bagby, to purchase an unopened road allowance situated adjacent to their subject property. And we can see on the map right here, it's the portion not on the left side with the little island, but the little blue strip right there. We did confirm through our municipal solicitor that the westerly portion, so the other side of the road allowance, is also owned by the same owners. Therefore, in discussions with the agent of the property owners, it is staff's understanding that the portion of unopened road allowance is frequently being visited or being used by unauthorized individuals for camping or recreational purposes. As a result, the owners are requesting purchase of the unopened road allowance to restrict the trespassing of these lands. So I'm just going to go a little bit into the official plan. In a general sense, it is the position of council that the ownership of unopened road allowances remain with the township. However, council may, and at its sole discretion, consider the closing and conveying of the road allowance if some tests are being met. And in my report, it does identify probably about 5 tests that are need to be met. The closing and conveying of the unopened road allowance does meet those tests in the official plan. As in the township's planning opinion, the shore road allowance not only abuts and is directly in front of a shoreline lot, it is also not presently situated in an area that would serve any form of a public interest. As the lot is, again, it's primarily water access only. Therefore, the unopened road allowance would essentially be eligible for conveyance. As it currently sits, the remaining segment of the unopened road allowance serves no future benefit to the township. Therefore, it would be appropriate for council to approve the stopping up, closing and conveying of the unopened road allowance abutting the subject property. On May 8th of 2024, township staff confirmed that the portion again of that unopened road allowance or the lands west of the unopened road allowance are actually in fact in the ownership of the property owners. So the yellow highlights. And that concludes my report to council.
Okay. All right then. Any questions for Artie with regards to that? Right.
I'm not sure whether we've just talked about it or passed it, but the stop up and close, then immediately the homeowner engages an appraiser, right?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. That's correct.
And I guess my question is why does a homeowner appraising the property, why isn't that done by the municipality, and they, like, it would be a fee that they would pay up front?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. I think that township staff just don't have the appraisal skills. I mean, in order to assess or appraise lands, you have to have a designation and appraisal.
Well, precisely. And there are people out there that we could hire to do the same thing what an owner would do. So the township be doing, because whoever instructs the appraiser has control over some things when you're instructing. So to me, they should pay and we should be engaging these.
I thought we did have our own, like, people we used at one time, but maybe we've got away from them, but maybe my memory's gone.
You can only peer review them.
Yeah.
Peer review appraisal reports.
Travis?
So through you, when we redid the policy for the unopened road allowance purchases, we left it that the appraisal could be done by the applicant could get their own. We didn't put it in that we had our own. If council wishes us to bring that back to them, we could certainly do that, and we would have to do an RFT to find an appraiser on behalf of the township.
So that could be added into the motion as far as if we were to go with the recommendation on acquiring our own appraisal.
So through you, that would delay this one a bit. We would have to bring the policy back for council's direction and then go out for an RFT, so a request for tender to find our own appraiser and then use them going forward.
Okay, so what's council's thoughts here?
Just through you, I'm just confused with, in the report here, it says the unopened road allowance is frequently being used by unauthorized individuals. Explain that.
Through to you, Mr. Mayor, to you, Deputy Mayor Webb. So essentially, we were given indication from the property owners or the agent of the property owners that people essentially come to that little portion with the blue included, and they camp there, they sometimes litter there, and they essentially want to purchase the unopened road allowance to unify all those lands and somehow stop the trespassing.
So camping on
but
road
it's not-
allowance isn't allowed anyways, right?
Pretty much.
No, but that's dealt with, but I'm just saying it's, I don't know, issues around that, around these lakes in terms of, I get the people of the property and want whatever, but there's other people that would like access to the lake. So I understand the camping and whatnot, but there might be still people that use that road to put their boat in, go fishing, right?
It's an island.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, some kind of act.
Yeah.
And that's. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not. Go.
Okay, well, does somebody have a motion to make for this? The motion is, the recommendation was that council receive this report and agree in principle. If you don't want that, we can make a different one, but go ahead, Council Clement.
Well, through you, Mayor, I remember when we discussed this the last time, we agreed that once we found out who owned it, and since this is sort of extenuating circumstance, because it's all by the same property owners, it's not, so. I mean, I'd like to make a motion to pass it because it is totally owned by one person. If it was split up, I'd say no, but in this case, it is one person, right?
Oh, sorry, that was a question.
No,
Mr. Mayor.
so we agreed, yes, because that's what we had you look into the last time when we passed this back in,
Yeah, pretty much.
whatever, okay.
Okay, Council Doherty and then Deputy Mayor Webb.
I'm a little tad confused how people are camping on this unless they're going by boat. If it's an island, and then where are they anchoring? Are they anchoring on the yellow portion and walking over? Are they anchoring on the owner's property? Like what? How did they get in there and get off and it being an issue?
You know where the road allowance is to not be trespassing.
That's
Yeah.
a great question.
I'm just confused.
No, it's just, we were just given indication that that little portion over there is just being used for recreational purposes from unauthorized residents and people essentially.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, so Ari, I'm a little confused. So it's the black island and the black piece is the property that these people want to own?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. So no, it would essentially be the property owners, I mean, the subject parcel, it kind of indicates it over there, like the yellow highlighted portion is what they own.
Oh,
The yellow highlight should also include the little tip of now, I'm not sure about the island, but the little tip where it's kind of jutting out, that is also owned by the property owners, and this road allowance kind of goes right through it. And the blue is what they're requesting purchases.
right, and that's where the road goes up through so that these people can get on the lake and camp on the island.
Again, so it's an unopened road allowance, so it's not a road or anything like that. It's just an unopened road allowance. It's a road allowance that was once upon a time created, and township council at the time may have said, well, we might make a road here someday. However, this one was captured on an island. It's very typical of Jack Lake and Cashabog Lake and Methuen Lake.
it was something to take a look at the map, because these lines were just drawn straight through the township. You know, they crisscross through the township, and it doesn't matter what's in the way, so they go across water, they go across. You gotta take a look at the map and you'll understand that these are just straight lines that were drawn, kind of like when they made the boundaries on the. But it's good to
Is
look
there
at it.
other access roads? Like through that property to get onto Jack's Lake? Where's the other one, like, that they can?
I believe it's a water access only property. I believe Laura Stone, who's on,
Yeah.
Laura Stone may be on the call, or
Yes.
maybe she can provide information as to how the property owners gain access.
Yeah, so Laura, can you,
Oh, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
Jim. So that whole picture there is an island, is what you're
That's,
saying?
yes.
Right, and then they're, okay, thank you. That's clarified now.
okay, so Laura, if you're, see your hand up, if you would like to clarify anything here?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much and good morning, council. So this portion of the unopened road allowance is really only accessible by water. The main concern is not so much people necessarily boating to and camping on that strip, but it goes over onto my client's property. So they've found smoldering campfires, broken glass, all that stuff on their property because of this unopened road allowance. They do own both sides of the unopened road allowance, and really this would just tidy up the property so it's just one parcel owned by my clients, Kathy and Scott Bagsby. They do own that little island as well. Really, this strip should not be accessible to anybody other than someone who's boating. And the intention is really, as I said, to tidy it up so that we don't have to be dealing with the broken glass, the campfires. You know, a lot of trash gets left there. There's people wandering onto their privately owned property, that type of thing.
all right then, so. Anyway, so what's council's thoughts here? Any other questions or any questions for Laura? All right then. So. Okay, there is a recommendation, or if you want to create a motion, what's next?
I'll move.
Move it, moved by Councillor Clement, by the seconder. Seconder for this. Not being a seconder.
Seconded.
Second by Deputy Mayor Webb. Okay, questions?
Providing we can order and obtain the appraisal. The township, yeah,
Okay.
the municipality,
You'd have to ask her, she made the motion.
yeah, well, you're first and second, you can do what you want.
Should we use our own appraiser?
So Laura's still on the line?
Yep,
Okay.
I am.
So you haven't looked into an appraisal yet, have you?
No, I haven't, but the appraisal would be presented to the municipality before authorizing the purchase. So that's something that would still be up for review. And I believe it would be potentially peer reviewed or at least examined by staff and council.
There is an option to put it in there if you would like it in the motion that we get our own appraiser. It would hold it up a little bit, but
I think we need some kind of comparison. Right?
So,
Because we're just taking their word for.
right, okay, so Laura, back,
Okay,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I did work for the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation for like 2-3 years, so I do have some background on like how to determine these vacant parcels, especially on cottage properties. So when I look through the reports, if there's any red flags, I do kind of bring it up, but it's a standard process for how they determine the value. It's, you know, they find multiple properties and then do, it's a regression analysis and they pretty much find an average. And so far, I haven't seen any issues with it.
so it will be peer reviewed though, once the, like with a quote that comes in from their representative, we will be looking at that.
It could be, yeah. I'm not a certified appraiser, but
No.
we could get an appraiser to essentially peer review. Yeah.
Still admit you work for the M. Wow, you're doing good. So. Okay. So the motion right now is that we, as the recommendation, Councillor Doherty did ask if you would like to add in there about getting our own appraiser. If not, that's fine. It's a suggestion by Councillor Doherty, so.
So my thought at this point is for the township to spend any money when the owner's already prepared to spend money going forward. If people want to change this, sorry, go ahead.
No, the suggestion was
Mhm.
that the owner pay the appraisal. We instruct the appraiser to do an appraisal for Havelock-Belmont-Methuen, not the owner. That was
Oh,
what
sorry,
I
okay.
originally said on it, but I.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, that's fine.
So,
Yeah.
we obtain the appraiser.
well, the motion isn't.
Yeah, no, I
You
think
said
that I agree.
you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's agreed by the mover and the seconder. All right then, so the motion does include in there that we require an appraisal by the township, so. Okay, any other questions? All in favor? And that's. All right,
Thank you, council.
all right, next item here is. Okay. Thank you, Laura. So the next item on here is another stop up and close. Methuen concession. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the purpose and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council, a request essentially to stop up and close and convey. It's another one of these open road allowances. And the recommendation is that staff provide the applicants with the necessary requirements in order to fulfill the stopping up and closing of the unopened road allowance vicinity address 540 Fire Route 84. So by way of a background information on this application, the municipality was in receipt of a request from the property owner Alistair Monroe regarding the proposed acquisition of approximately 66 feet of unopened road allowance bisecting their property from the shoreline of Methuen Lake. And we can kind of see what's happening here on the subject property. There's actually two layers of unopened road allowances, not unopened road allowances, but road allowances. One is a municipal one and one is Crown land, which is M&R essentially. They would own that portion. So it's almost like a dual ownership that is being done to the shoreline. The property is described as concession 2 part lot 26. Plan 35 lot 21 with municipal address of 540 Fire Route 84 in the Methuen ward. If approved, this would provide a shoreline frontage of approximately 66 feet of the abutting lot. So by way of, again, the analysis that I provide is based off of the official plan. There are certain tests that need to be meted essentially. The closing and conveying of the unopened road allowance meets those above tests. As in the township's planning opinion, the shore road allowance not only abuts and is directly in front of a shoreline lot, it does not contribute to any form of a public interest. So this would be one of those cliff situations exactly that we kind of spoke about in the previous application. Furthermore, the road allowance is currently not being used for any form of a recreational trail association, any lake clubs. It's currently not being used. As previously stated, the township has identified that the road allowance cannot contribute to any form of public access to Methuen Lake, I should say. Furthermore, the road allowance is also in a location which is highly unlikely to be used for any useful function for the township's roadway system and public spaces. Therefore, it is the township's planning opinion that the stopping up and closing of the unopened road allowance maintains the spirit and intent of the official plan. Now, it's important that we kind of discuss a little bit about the zoning bylaw. So the closing and conveying of the unopened road allowance, as well as the M&R portion, which I know the applicant is currently in the process of completing as well. The closing of it would improve the subject law, so it would be a net improvement. Firstly, the property currently contains residential uses for which are not afforded direct frontage on Methuen Lake. In essence, the road allowance would essentially be creating, or the purchase of it would create unbacklotting a parcel. Right now, currently at the moment, they don't really have shoreline access legally. So it's backlotted almost. And so essentially, if they were to purchase those two road allowances, it would reverse that. And that concludes my report to council.
Thank you, Arya. And yeah, the only comment I had with this one here going through it is a higher level picture to see where that road allowance goes to. Like it's, I understand it's on the lake on the one side. And it might be a cliff, but I just wonder, it goes through some other properties. Do they own the road allowance already on the other properties?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. I believe so. There are, when I was going through the property file folders downstairs, I believe the adjacent parcels did have maintained ownership. So they did maintain ownership. The unopened road allowance essentially just goes through their property on the shoreline. But everyone else next door does have, if it is owned by M&R, they have purchased it way back in whatever.
That was the only thing I kind of, usually it's pretty clear that it's. Okay. All right, then, so the recommendation here is that provide the applicant's property owners with the necessary requirements in order to fulfill the stopping up. What's council's thoughts? Okay, Councilor Flagler is moving the recommendation. I have a seconder. Second by Councilor Clement. Questions, comments? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. The next item is request with regards to M&R, our Crown Reserve properties, or it's abutting. So go ahead, Arya.
So the purpose, through to you, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of this report is present for, again, the consideration and requisite direction of council to request received from the property owner in relation to the acquiring the abutting shoreline Crown Reserve. And the recommendation is that council directs staff to advise the property owner and the Ministry of Natural Resources, who essentially does own, here, let me actually, there you go. Who does essentially own that little portion right there. That the township has no concerns with the, or any objections to the proposed acquisition of the abutting shoreline Crown Reserve. Very short background on this, the municipality received a request from the owner, Don Jenkins. I believe he's going through a severance application, and certification required, or the county essentially gave direction to the township to inquire as to who actually owns that little parcel right there, and it was undetermined because they did a survey and it said Crown land. The property owner did eventually contact MNRF. They had said that, yes, that is Crown land. Essentially, it's owned by M&R, but we have no issues with you purchasing it. And they essentially are asking if the township has any concerns with that. And this report is basically saying that we don't have any concerns.
Right. What's council's thoughts on this one? Once again, there is a recommendation. The council directs staff to advise property owner and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry that the township has no concern. That's the recommendation. What's your thoughts? Your comment?
So through you, remember, so this is owned, who owns the big piece, Arya? But 572.
The Texas looking,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so the property owner himself.
Okay, so
They-
he just
exactly.
wants this, and it's M&R is purchasing from, so, and we've got the reports that no one has objected to anything, there's.
Much like much like the previous one, the Bagby one, it's just to essentially just make the lot lines more conform.
And he's purchasing not from us, he's purchasing from the M&R.
Exactly.
So I'll pass the motion to accept it.
Motion. Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Second by Deputy Mayor Webb. Question. Councilor
This is an island, right?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. So it is an island, yes. So it's on Jack Lake. I guess the island. Oh, it actually says it right there, Gigs Island. It's
So the road doesn't come from anywhere and doesn't go anywhere then. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so have you moved on the seconder? Any other question? All in favor? And that's. All right, thank you, Artie, you made it through. Okay, so we're gonna move into delegation, break at 11 o'clock, but the first delegation here is SEMA. So. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so with regards to the wastewater.
Yeah, so can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
There's two items to discuss. There's the wastewater treatment plant project, and then there's a proposed water and wastewater master plan. Here. So there's the two items on the agenda. So first talk about the wastewater treatment plant and kind of how we got to where we are now and what the next steps are. There's also a few questions and answers that came up during the process that we'll address. And then second part of the agenda is the water and wastewater master plan. And yeah, we'll open it to any questions and along the way, if there's any questions, please interrupt me. So for the wastewater treatment plant, we start with the 2009, there was a construction of the current wastewater treatment plant from the lagoons they used to have to a mechanical plant. And then fast forward about 10 years, 9 years, there was a proposal for new development, and there was a functional study, servicing study completed that showed that there was some capacity concerns of the wastewater treatment plant that required expansion. So that triggered a bunch of work in the collection system. There's some collection system upgrades in 2019 that reduced some of the flow that was getting to the plant. And at some point, actually, in between, there was this EA that was completed. I think it's, oh, yeah, there you go. So in 2023, there was a environmental assessment study completed to figure out what to do with the expansion of the plant, and that we'll get to the recommendations of that study. But it broke the project into two phases. Phase one being more of an immediate thing, and phase two being a future expansion to accommodate future buildup. And in the meantime, there's the recommendation to continue addressing infiltration and inflow in the collection system. So with the idea that in 2051, that's when you would require potentially additional upgrades. So this is the recommendations. These are the recommendations from the EA study. There was projections for growth, including that South Havelock development that required a capacity increase at the wastewater treatment plant. There's also issues with severe wet water flow, infiltration and inflow into the collection system. So during periods of wet water flow, there's significant peaks in flow to the plant, which have taxed the capacity of the plant currently. And also the plant was originally designed to receive septic waste. And because of these capacity constraints, the capacity is limited, so it cannot handle as much as it should be able to. So those are the three main issues that we identified in this study. And so this chart, I'll go back and forth to this chart, but this shows you the green lines. It's a period of about 5 years. The green lines show you the wastewater flow, the flow to the wastewater treatment plant, while the blue line shows you the water, the drinking water consumption. And kind of you see there's a significant difference. So you would expect that them to be closely related, right? Like the water that you use turns into wastewater. In fact, you expect the green line, to be below the blue line, typically. However, because of these infiltration and inflow issues, you have a lot of water that's external to the system, groundwater or rainwater, and so on, that's exceeding the normal wastewater projections that you would expect. And you see that the red line there is the average rated capacity of the plant. So you see there's periods of time when that capacity is exceeded. It's not all the time, right? On average, you're actually below that line, but there's periods of time, especially 2017, 2018, before those upgrades to the I&I system were completed. This is a significant issue, but you still see it up to 2023. There's still those peaks exceeding the capacity. So it's an ongoing issue right now. So there's the average flow actually was exceeded in 2018, and there's some reductions happened in 2019. And in this, you see that purple line you see there is what the flow used to be on average, and then after 2019, the INI reduction brought it down a bit, right? So 1,200 is a key number here. 1,200 is the capacity of the plant. 820 is what on average you would see in the last few years. But you still see those peaks. So there's instantaneous basis, like whenever there's a big rain event, you'll exceed the capacity of the plant. Yes.
We only exceed in January to March in every one. That's the normal. Is that not runoff from the winter?
Yes, probably. Yes.
So it's not all year then,
It's not all year.
and it doesn't have effect on the rain. It's runoff.
It's probably a combination of snow melt and runoff, rain or high groundwater. We don't know exactly. But it typically happens during those spring melt events or when there's significant wet weather flow events.
Okay, I have another question. When did community care or the new Peterborough housing unit come on stream? Anybody know the date? Fully?
3 years.
2021.
How did that affect the flow?
Not very much. I mean, like if you, again, it's hard to say because as you can see from the purple line, a lot of the bulk of the flow was coming from this external. That was not actual residential wastewater. It was groundwater or infiltration. So I have some numbers here to give you some average numbers of like how many, like, so for example, the reduction from what it was before to 820 is about equivalent to what 200 units of development would produce on average for wastewater. So any reductions in infiltration and inflow you can achieve is significant in terms of how much development you can accommodate.
Thank you.
So when we redid the streets out here, that helped a little bit, and I'm fully expecting George Street is really gonna help with the new sewer. It should help a lot, maybe not enough, but
And then again, it's the issue with these types of things, and I'll get into this a little bit further, but it's 2018 was a particularly wet year too. So who knows if we had a year just like 2018 now, how much actual flow you would see. So it could be a combination of the fact that, yeah, there's less coming in overall, but you also had less precipitation in the past few years than 2018, for example.
Deputy Mayor Webb had a couple.
3 years, it's not something though that we're gonna have to face going forward because as it says there, we started upgrades in 2019. We're still getting those peaks at pretty much the same time, even though we've made repairs to these. So the way I'm looking at it is, why would I go and make any more of those? Because when we're off peak season, we're down around what, 500
Yes.
on the lows, right?
Yes.
So, and the upgrades to the INI or whatever doesn't seem to help us during the peak period. Right? Because we're still getting the same peaks at the same time. It's down a little bit.
Yeah, so the INI, like, there's a distinction between the INI is only the peaks.
Yeah.
That again, in fact.
Basically, what I'm saying here is, I think the town's been built kind of on the swamp. Yeah. So we can play all these games trying to get that lower. But to me, that number is still always gonna somewhere in around 1,000. So why don't we just wrap our heads around that and deal with that moving forward, in that we're always gonna have that level of infiltration. Instead of throwing money at this, you throw money at it, it comes down a little bit, but I mean, we're still in the same thing. So when we get into, say, upgrading the plant, just work those figures into it, that we're gonna have higher infiltration than, say, Norwood or some other town was, just because of the topography of where our town was built. Instead of playing, the let's camera this, because every time we put cameras, you guys know, it's $50,000-$100,000. Like, it's not cheap to get this work done. So is it better just to take those chunks of money and put them into the upgrade over here and assume that we're gonna have an extra 200 or 300, I don't know. I look to you because you do this on a daily basis, but.
You're kind of anticipating a recommendation a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we'll go through it, and then I just want to make sure that everyone has a full picture, and sorry.
When you're done. Are we the only township that has a system whereby there's peaks that go over their capacity?
No.
Okay, so this is a kind of a regular thing that happens in most communities,
Yes. And it's a, yes.
and we're gonna spend $5 million to correct what happens all over Ontario or rural Ontario?
No, it's not just rural Ontario, like it's a matter of magnitudes, right? Like, say, city of Toronto, for
Yeah.
example, spends billions of dollars trying to fix with a B.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thank you.
So, but yeah, it's a regular issue, unfortunately. I can continue and I can go
Yeah.
back as
No, that's
as required.
Carry on.
So, yeah, just showing a P that there's, I think I already touched on all of this, but, so the report that we brought, I think last year, had some recommendations. So, like I said, there was two phases to the upgrades to the plant. There was an immediate phase, and then there was a future phase as required with development. And what the initial phase involved was taking one of the lagoons that's already sitting there without doing anything and using to help shave off these peaks. So the flow that exceeds the capacity of the plant gets sent to that pond or modifications to that pond. And then gradually that gets sent back to the plant during those low flow periods. So there's no risk of overflowing, there's no risk of non-compliance with the ministry. And it allows you to basically decouple the peak issue from the development issue. Right, so that was the first recommendation. And then the idea was also to continue monitoring the flows to the plant, because at a certain percent of the capacity, that's a trigger to start looking at other things. We also recommend to continue pursuing reductions in I&I. That's something that is going to be an ongoing process as you continue doing these road reconstruction projects where you're replacing the infrastructure underneath. You'll recognize there's some reductions as you go. And then as you get these reductions, that will actually push back the need to expand the plant in phase 2. So it's not a waste of effort. It just buys you more time, or potentially buys you, like, it gets you more intensification capacity if you choose to grow even more. And then we recommended as part of this EA to pursue an asset management program, to review the rates, the water and sewer rates, as well as the development charges. And then, like, further down the road, phase 2 is the capacity expansion beyond what you currently have. And then we said about 80 to 90% of your current average day capacity. So we're saying roughly 2040, but it's hard to say.
So that number there, is that as we are right now without development? By 2040, we would hit that?
Yes, that's the estimate based
With no
on,
new subdivisions or anything, just what we have right now?
yes. And then, so in the EA, there was that South Havelock development that was kind of assumed to happen within the next 5 to 10 years. And then after there was about same rate of growth as what the county is growing on average. But as new development applications come in, like you have to review this and make sure.
So the buffer that phase 1 would give us, how many houses could we possibly, like, that's what I look at as a buffer for overflow seasons.
And I think we have that. No, I think we have that slide. So if you can hold
That's
that.
okay, so when you get there.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, just again, I'll skip through this quickly. This is schematically, what we're saying phase 1 would be is just having an ability to send flow to the lagoons during those high flow periods. So there would be some modification to the lagoon. We probably don't need the whole lagoon. Just retrofit the lagoon, reline it, and then add a pumping station to pump the flow back to the plant. And then we know the real changes to the plant during phase 1. But phase 2, the full capacity expansion means that you're expanding the whole process. So it's significantly more complicated, more expensive, obviousobviously, but it gives you more than double the capacity that you have now. If to accommodate further development. So this was what was presented last year, was kind of rounded it up and brought it up by inflation. So about 5.5 million for phase 1, And then phase two was about almost 50 million. Right, understanding that that would do not need to happen till later in the future. And this would ideally completely be funded by growth. And obviously, if there's funding applications that could be obtained, but the idea is that this would phase one would buy you more time to get that funding and to find that development actually to fund this project. So here I have a series of questions and answers, and some of the questions you already raised. So here there was a question about how much capacity can you gain by expanding the plant in phase two? And then we said it's about 200 units. So you see, if you remember from the first slide with the chart there, that reduction that you did in 2018 essentially gained you 200 units. So to get further 200 units, you could somehow fix the system, or you could expand the plant, right? And there's two approaches, right? So question is finding the best combination of how you spend your money to get the biggest bang for your buck. There was another question that came up about what if we were to pump all the flow that gets to the plant down to the Trent River and use it and discharge there? And then I mean, I hope I'm not gonna get too technical here, but the issue with the plant currently is that it's discharging to the Castor River, or and it's a very sensitive creek. And so that means the processes at the plant have to be designed in a way that meet especially phosphorus. That's a very sensitive to phosphorus. So the thought with this idea is that if you're pumping down to Trent River, then you don't have to treat as much down here. The trade-off is obviously the cost of building the pumping station and the pipe all the way down there. Because there's permitting requirements, ministry, and then the folks that maybe use the Trent River water for drinking water might have an issue with it. So it is an option that could be looked at for future phases. It was not something that was recommended as part of the EA because of it was seen as more expensive than the current option.
And we did look at that when we did in 2018 or 2008, I guess, or 2009, whenever the treatment plant was done. We talked about it then, and the cost was so crazy, it was thrown off the table pretty quick. So I'd hate to spend too much money looking at that for future unless we really had to.
And I mean, if you're thinking Havelock is gonna be the next Peterborough, maybe.
Yeah.
You might need, that might be, you'll have no choice because there's only so much capacity that creek has, right? But at this point, within the confines of what the EA looked at, it didn't make economic sense at that time. So the next question was, if yes to the previous question, can our current EA be amended or is a new one required? So that everything keeps changing now these days, but as it stands right now, the EA validity period is like 10 years. So if you build this within 10 years, you don't have to do anything to the EA, but you can always amend it. And the reason why I said this might change is because the province is now proposing changes to the EA process, which would essentially completely change the way EAs are done. And some projects might not even require EAs at all. A wastewater treatment plant would still require an EA, but the process would be a little bit different, and I don't think everyone has it figured out exactly. But the short answer is for phase two, you're likely gonna need to amend the EA or do another EA because it's gonna be, I don't know, 20 years in the future. No. Okay, so that's the answer. How much additional capacity would be added to the treatment plant? So I think it's related to the previous thing, would this eliminate the need for phase 1 and 2? No. So I don't think the Trent River option wouldn't add any more or less capacity than what we looked at. It would have the same capacity, it's just the difference is the technicalities, the details. So phase 1, still, it's completely separate. Phase one deals with the peak flow. Those peaks in the green chart. And then it's disconnected to phase two altogether, so this really wouldn't make any difference. Phase two, yeah. What problem does phase one solve? And again, going back to there's significant infiltration and inflow, which means that during snow melt, the spring runoff, all these situations, the flow to the wastewater plant exceeds the capacity of the plant. And why is that a problem? Well, I don't think the operators would ever let this happen, but in some situations, you could have a case where the stuff that makes the plant work, the biomass gets washed out. And not only creates a non-compliance issue because all of that ends in the environment, but also it takes like 7 to 10 days for that biomass to grow back. So during that 7-day period, your non-compliance continues. So it would be a significant issue environmentally, plus the ministry will probably give you a big fine, for such an issue. So that's why plants don't like having overflows. They rather like stop the flow, and then that causes issues upstream. Maybe you have basement flooding, you have overflows of combined sewer overflows, things like that. So that's what this phase one is meant to achieve, is meant to take all that excess flow that's coming to the plant, store it. And then when the plant has the capacity to handle it, gradually send it back to the treatment, and then that way 100% of the flow gets treated. Even during excess flow conditions. Another question is, if you were to solve the infiltration and inflow issues in the collection system, how much capacity could you gain? This is a very difficult question to answer because we don't actually know exactly how much flow is getting in through the cracks and through infiltration. What we could do to estimate this is to say, imagine if the wastewater flow was the same as the water in the mix. Right, if the green line was exactly the same as the blue line, what would that reduction be? And then in simple terms, that's about 200 to 300 units of capacity. Right, so if you could, theoretically, if you could completely eliminate your infiltration and inflow into your system, which everyone's trying to, you could basically increase 200 to 300 units of capacity, right? So yeah, again, this picture just shows if that green went down to the blue, if all the water, if the wastewater was just residential water use, showers and toilets and whatever, and then you didn't have those significant peaks, ideally, which is very hard to do, right? You could get 200 to 300 units, right? So I think this is the same chart I had before, so I'm not gonna go through it before. So just some numbers here for context. So a typical house uses about a cubic meter per day, household of 3 people-ish. Whereas you see Havelocks actually uses about 20 to 50% more than the average household, right? So you have significant issues with I&I. So how do you fix it, right? How do you fix I&I, right? That's the billion-dollar question. So in this case, it's difficult because how does water get into the sewer system? Well, it's like through the manhole covers. Portion of that, there's manholes that leak, there's direct connections, there's maybe some homes that have their sump pumps or roof drains or stuff connected directly to the collection system. There's a bunch of different potential causes, right? So there's all these things you could do, removing all those stormwater connections, sealing manholes, replacing leaky sewers, replacing the entire sanitary system, right? So based on your asset management plan, based on the numbers there, just replacing the sewers, just the sewers, would cost about $14 million, in the whole township, right? But if you're digging up the road and you're replacing the sewage, you're probably replacing the storm too, the water main, the road, etc. And that quickly balloons up to about $48 million. So it's not an easy undertaking to fix this, and that's the recommendations, like do it as you go gradually. If you're planning to do the road, do the sewers too, right? But don't try to fix 100% of the INI in one go because it's very expensive. And then, so you see George Street, the project that's being proposed, expected to reduce some of the INI. We don't know exactly how much, but it probably a significant amount of INI, maybe in the order of 200 units potentially. And that's gonna cost 7.1 million. So that includes other infrastructure as well. So to summarize what the EA recommended in terms of projects and dollars and cents, it was like phase one, do as soon as possible because you continue to have these issues with infiltration and inflow. And in terms of units, how much capacity could that buy you? About 136 units, right? So just put some dollars per unit there, about $40,000 per unit of benefit. It obviously has other benefits, environmentally, compliance, etc. But just to give you some order of magnitude numbers. And then gradual replacement, and we're saying within the next 25 years, gradually replace your collection system. Right, and that we're saying it's about $14 million if you just replace in the sewers, but if you're doing the whole roads, then obviously it's more expensive. So that cost is, if you're just doing the sewers, it's 46,000 per unit, to up to 61,000 per unit, depending on how much reduction you get. And then further down the road, we're saying if you were to expand the plant, phase two of the expansion, that would be giving you 200 units roughly, and it would cost about $68,000 per unit. Okay. So that's one strategy, right? The other strategy would be, oh, what if we had all the money in the world now to do it all now, right? Well, you could replace the whole sanitary system and it would be between 14 to whatever I said, 48 million. And then just skip. You don't need phase one anymore. You just skip phase one and you just go straight into phase two, right? So that's another strategy. Obviously, this is more expensive, right? So just to summarize, the recommendations of the EA were do phase one as soon as possible. That buys you time, deals with the ongoing issue of infiltration and inflow and the potential risk of non-compliance. And then as you are continuing through your development, you continue monitoring the flows. And then after George Street is completed, we expect to see some reduction in flow. So that will delay the need for future expansion. So you're going to continue pursuing reductions in INI. And then as you go through your process, you might, once you get to 80 to 90% of the capacity of the plant, you start looking at phase two. Right? And all along the way, you're doing asset management, you're looking at your rates, you're looking at your development charges to make sure you have proper funding for all the projects you need to do. And yeah, and then phase two, if the needs arises and the financially makes sense, you could look at Trent River, now folks Trent River at that time, as far as phase two. So that was there's another question. So what is the timeline for phase one? We recommended to do this immediately, but if you were to start this year, it's about a year for design and then accounting as well, a bit over a year because there's permits. So the ministry is getting better, but it still takes about a year for permits to be received. And so construction would be completed by end of 2026 potentially. Okay, and then this question came up as well during our meetings, who's currently managing the project? So at this time, we're like looking for direction on whether to pursue, how to proceed and whether to proceed with the phase one project. There was a proposal that was submitted to the township to do that work. And I guess at the end of this meeting, we'll hopefully have direction. So what does phase one entail? There's some field investigation work that has to be done at the site. And then there's various phases of design, tendering, construction, and permitting as well. So like I said, this will take about 1.5 years for design and permits, and then construction 2026. And that was our design fee. 350,000, includes some provisional work, depending on whether there's some natural species that have to be dealt with, especially around the lagoons. And that's it for the wastewater plant. I don't know if there's any questions. Or I can move on to the master plan portion.
Through you, okay, let's not do any of this. What's our capacity today if we get it developed? Now, this is a hypothetical because I don't have any fun. If we got to build our business, we want to build 100 houses today, starting today. Do we have capacity?
I haven't looked at the numbers lately, but yes, I think there's a number that we put in the report, maybe 160 units, I think that you can.
Okay, so we do nothing and we have capacity for 160 units.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And we didn't have any non-compliance, I guess, in any of these other peak times. We had a really peak in 8, and that's when they issued the INI. And we're continuing on about the same, except for 23, it went up a little bit. So we have no non-compliance issues in any of those other peak periods. At least I haven't seen a report that says we have.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, good question. Amber from Aqua. So we haven't had any non-compliance issues since our inception with the lagoons either being closed back in 2008. And if I could just speak to the question previously asked about capacity, and if we have that right now, to my understanding, and I'm just going off of working with SEMA last year, the capacity was only what was already under construction. So the everything that's shovel ready right now and being worked on, that's the capacity that we're at. So I think in the SEMA report, and make sure that I'm saying this correctly, is that no other buildings can be, or sorry, no other expansion can be considered until phase one is complete. Everything that's existing right now is what is been approved for capacity.
That clears that mud up really well.
Sorry.
It's either 160 or nothing or no capacity.
I misspoke.
You were going up there. That's been speakers there first.
Thank you.
Not back out.
So yeah, I think that's what I heard before is we don't have any more room for expansion right now.
Yeah, I misspoke. I think there's this distinction between what's allocated and what's so if you take out the remaining minus the allocated, then our recommendation is that you don't approve any more development until we complete phase one.
A follow-up if I can. Okay, so where's this fuzzy area of shovel ready then? How many of those shovel ready do we have that we can, like where are they on the spectrum? The shovel ready projects? Or are they?
I guess I should, sorry.
Sorry,
I'm yelling in my head. Thank you. Good question through you, Mr. Mayor. The shovel readies are what's being done now. So in 2018, we had the functional study that was completed by Engage. And to my understanding, that's when council realized that the wastewater system was reaching capacity. So then Aqua was asked to help, and that's when we started doing some I&I work, and then Aqua Engineering hired SEMA to come in and do a Class EA to start working on expansion. It was almost as if we were playing catch up because the Engage functional study was all work that was already gonna be completed for Havelock. Does that make sense? Did I make that worse?
I'm just looking for a number and I don't know where these shovel-ready projects are in the village of Havelock. I mean, that's all I want to find out is what's shovel-ready and what can we build on today? Do we have capacity for, if that could be answered?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate, but I would say when I say shovel-ready, it was 2018 functional study. So that took into account the southern part of Havelock that's being under construction and the long-term care home.
Long-term care, Smith Drive, and then there was 29 units.
Right.
That we were so on.
That's how I understand it.
So community care was in there, long-term care is in there, Smith Drive's in there. That's the shovel-ready part that we're talking about?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's how I understand.
Thank you.
And there was something at the back there, and then Deputy Mayor.
Just a quick comment on that through you, Mayor Martin.
You come up to the mic.
Yep. Through you, Mayor Martin. I can't really comment on it. I don't have a copy of the Class EA with me, but I'm 99% sure it details in the Class EA, like the shovel-ready projects. So it has the long-term care and the units in there, but I can't say them because I don't have a copy of it.
Yeah, you're correct. Sorry, unfortunately, we don't have any information on what the development applications are active now. But at the time the EA was completed back last year, there was a certain number that was assumed was proceeding immediately. And that was assumed to continue, and it's fine to continue, but the recommendation was, as a best practice, is not to wait till you're completely up to here in flow, just to basically give you some 10 to 20% buffer before you start approving more development.
So right now with the phase one, if we were to move ahead with the phase one, you'd be looking, I seen something there around 136 units. If we did the phase one, is that, am I looking at that right, or is that?
Yeah, and again, it's an estimate based on typical wastewater flows. Based on a unit being about 3 people per unit. But again, it doesn't account for the fact that George Street might reduce flow significantly, or might not, we don't know, right? So that's standalone phase one, it's about 136 units. And then it doesn't only solve the issue of kind of the average flow, but also the peak flow. The peak flow, that's the main reason for phase one is what happens during those peaks, right?
Deputy Mayor Webb, you had a.
Yes, through, so I don't know what page I'm on here, it's 166, but it says. Phase two upgrades triggered when allocated capacity reaches 80-90% of current rated capacity. Is that the current rated capacity of what's there now, or
Yes.
what we're gonna be upgrading in phase one?
So phase one doesn't give you actual increases in rated capacity. I want to find okay, there you go. So the rated capacity on your permit is based on the average flow, and that's 1,200 cubic meters per day. Phase one wouldn't change that. So what it's doing is the ability to get more of those green flows within control, if you will, like more of the green flow below the red line. So the red line stays the same for phase one, but for phase two, the red line would go up to about 1580 or 1600, something like that. So you're able to handle both more average flow and more peak flow with the phase two.
So in terms of moving forward, I should be asking ourselves this, but are we basically doing phase one because it's cheaper than phase two? Or because what I'm getting at here is if we're gonna put 5.5, 6 million into phase one, it doesn't sound to me like we're gonna get much more than 5 or 10 years out of it before we're gonna have to go to phase two. Like, what are we at in terms of capacity for there now? You don't have an idea? Like it says 80 to 90 triggers phase two, but are we 75 over there? Are we full 55? Like, how close are we to where this is gonna be triggered automatically?
Right, so the number that we had, I believe, was around 2040 was when we expect you'll need that phase two completed. So that depends on the rate of development, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna ask you a question, and if you don't have the answer. What I would ask you is, would it not be more cost feasible for us to just go ahead and move on to phase two and upgrade the whole thing now instead of putting 5 million in? Your estimate was 14 million, so if I take that out to 2040, I'm gonna double that to 30 million, right? So I'm just saying, it's just gonna get more and more expensive. Why wouldn't we just bite the bullet now and get it done if this is what we think is gonna happen?
Yeah, I mean.
I know you guys wanna get paid and everybody else, but I mean, in terms of the
It's
municipality.
a valid question, it's a valid question. I think the reason why the recommendation was put that way in the EA was recognizing that even 5 million is a lot of money, right? Or 15 million is a lot of money, so we're trying to solve different problems and break them up into pieces. So the first problem is the peak flow, and that's the immediate problem, because on average, you have capacity. So on average, if everything's going well, you can service more homes. The problem is during the rain events and the snow melt and so on. So that's why the phase one, we think, is necessary kind of regardless of what you do, because even if you were to, like, if you were to 1580, you see those lines, the green lines, they still go over 2,000 change, right? So it's that issue is not going away. Yeah.
So with that, I don't feel the one to answer, but Amber, when we go up, when we spike like that, where does it go?
It goes through the plan. So as
It goes through the plan?
yeah, we've experienced high flows every spring since basically its inception, but it's just when this started to get.
And so,
We've managed it with no non-compliances, but if we have any growth, it may eventually become a problem.
I'm just saying, like, are we solving a problem that we don't really have? Because if we deal with it, and we've dealt with it at much higher levels, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, it's coming down. Seems like a sporadic 1 or 2 week event, and if you're saying we're just running it through anyways, then it's not hurting anything, is it? Like, I don't.
Well, it's at risk. So you're risking the fact that you're exceeding your rated capacity for the plant.
Well, and what risk is that though? Like, is the plant gonna explode?
Bypassing
Creek, untreated.
Plato Creek. We've just been able to manage it. Like, we have the experience, I guess, in the plant.
That's what I'm saying. Do you do that? Like, or is there an automatic trigger on the plant when you hit a thing, it just starts dumping into, I don't believe that in terms of.
Oh, they do in the
regulation.
Trent River in Peterborough. They dump it into the creek when it overflows, and then they put out the water warnings, don't drink the water. That's what would happen with Plato Creek, right?
Yes, it's through you, Mr. Mayor. Bypassing is something that's common and it does happen.
We spike there, that all that water's getting dumped into.
It never has. I'm just gonna boast my guys. We've got the experience that it just doesn't happen because they can control it really well. But opening that lagoon would definitely eliminate any potential risk. Because if the town continues to grow, that spike's gonna get higher and higher.
Even with the phase two,
Pardon me?
even with phase two, like, cause we're running out, like, so the thing is, that we're really serious about growth. Right now, we're against the wall. There's no growth coming to Havelock-Belmont-Methuen because nobody's gonna buy here if they can't get rid of their waste. So, so we're in a predicament, and I think that's why we asked to go to get the class, the EA started, so we'd be ahead of the game, or at least starting to go in the right direction. Right now, we have some recommendations here. You know, they're all complicated. I'm really looking at this right now, hindsight's 2020, but this would have been better to be a special meeting of council than a delegation, because there's lots of questions to ask, and you know, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing, so.
Put it off and bring it back.
I don't think we're gonna get anywhere with this today, but go ahead, Councillor Doherty, and.
So you could, okay, maybe I misunderstood, but if we have growth, we'll stop the excess water coming in? That's what I heard. Am I hearing that incorrectly?
No, I must have said that wrong.
Or not, I said, maybe I heard it wrong.
Like, so,
I'm not sure how growth affects the flow of water in January and May, because we're still going to have those months. It doesn't matter what you do.
yeah, so it's a picture of like, there's the flow that you're gonna have anyway, but if with more people, you're gonna have more flow baseline, right?
Yeah, that's the red line, not the green line.
The red line is the capacity, so imagine the blue line for argument's sake, the blue line is your base flow, base wastewater flow. So if you have more homes, that blue line goes up. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, you add the water is coming in anyway from the rain. So then your green line, the total line gets higher, with more flow.
No, so it doesn't have any effect on it at all. One follow, if I may. Now, if we go to phase two, can we simply take the 5 million off the 14 million and it's now, it would net us 9? Or is it, do we gain anything by going to phase two and not doing phase one? Like, are those, that $5 million would be spent in the 14 million?
No, so they're separate there. There would, if you wanted to do both, you'd be 14 plus 5. But just.
So there's no savings in doing it.
No, so but I think what it's obviously more complicated. Just to touch on something you mentioned. There's various processes in the plant. One of them is a filtration system. And the filtration system is usually sized with some safety margin to handle those peaks. So right now, those peaks have happened to be within that safety margin. But as growth keeps going, then if you exceed the capacity of those filters, then you start having issues of non-compliance. So right now, they haven't had them because you're still in time to address this. Once you get to a certain point, then you're gonna have more issues that are more like pressing, if you will.
So kind of playing off his question through you, Mr. Mayor. In one of your drawings there, I think for phase one, it's got a new, is it pumping plant or filtration plant that pumps it out into the lagoon? I thought it. Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know where.
It's kind of to your point is when we build that, that's obviously gonna cost money and everything. So when we go to phase two, is that something that we can incorporate in phase two? Or is that something that's just gonna be obsolete? And
No, it still helps you. It still helps you. So they're additive.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, they're additive. So this gives you the ability of handling peak flows. So you, instead of having this, you have something like more like this.
Oh, it's better because in
Better.
terms of it's an investment, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not spending money twice. I'm not using
And
it.
you have the lagoons there, right? So it's not only capacity, it's all the peace of mind, if you will, benefits to it.
Thank you.
All right, I don't know, as far as decisions today, but I really think it should have been a.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I still have the other part. I don't know.
You got the other. Okay, what's council's thoughts here? Like, this should have probably been a meeting.
Well, I'll take your advice then to make a motion that we ask Stephen Lockwood to come back for a special council meeting to discuss this.
Just to focus on this, because this is a big decision and a lot of money and we're up against it. I mean, if everybody wants growth, but you can't have growth without this, so. We need it all the best ways, so, yeah, I think before we go on, if Deputy Mayor Webb, you're gonna make a motion that we call a special meeting of council for water and sewer and deal with this separately.
Yeah, just like to apologize.
Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off. Fantastic presentation.
Okay, is there a seconder for it? Second by Councillor Clement. All in favor? And that's carried. So thank you very much and sorry about that, but no worries. There's a lot of detail here we need to understand completely, so. So I know we have a couple more delegations. We're just gonna take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and so we'll come back for you. Motion to I'm just gonna get a motion to resume from our break. So moved by Councillor Doherty, second by Deputy Mayor Webb, all in favor. Carried. So it's item here is unity design and the community center presentation. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Martin and council. It's great to be here. My name is Bill Lett and I'm here with my colleague Matthew Phillip from Unity Design Studio, and we are here to talk to you about the community center. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So similar to the last delegation, this presentation is fairly major in that we've come to talk to you and update you since the last time we talked about the community center. So as a reminder, last year in 2023, you had a community survey completed that looked at what the community needs were for the community center. Ultimately, the results for that survey were quite strongly a gym and a fitness center would be the preferred program for an addition to the existing community center. When we presented that, we presented an overall order of magnitude capital cost for that project in and around $20 million. At the beginning of this year, we worked with staff to look at what might potentially be two options moving forward for you to decide on. And so we have these two options, option A and option B to show you today, with some high level construction cost and capital cost as well. But ultimately, we're at a tipping point where we are going to need a council decision on how to move this project forward so that we can meet the requirements of the federal grant that you have in place. So I'm going to hand it over to Matthew to talk about what each option comprises of.
Thank you, Bill. This is option A. So just to give you context, it's a Google map shot of the community center. North is up on the page. It is the new elevator and an entrance space, just highlighted in red. The arrow pointing, it's a small kind of vestibule lobby space on the east side, southeast side of the building, current building. And then there would be the entire sloped roof restoration and any additional power requirements. It's understanding from staff that the current building, the power is limited, and having a new elevator would allow us to provide an analysis in doing an additional power requirements as well. So going into the current community center, this is the basement floor plan. If you were to look at it with the context plan, it was rotated clockwise. So north is now to the right of the page. In the basement, we've tucked the elevator on the southeast corner side. So it still gives you plenty of room in the basement, the kind of open area. In that basement, the easy access to the washrooms as well. And there's currently a service room that we would have to occupy and renovate. Going up into the ground floor level. So again, north is to the right. So southeast corner of the elevator is tucked in southeast side with the vestibule. The current vestibule in this spot for the Lions Club, it's a two-door vestibule. We would take out the exterior door and then attach a lobby space and vestibule expansion to that space. So roughly speaking, it's 320 square feet for this renovation. And going up to the second floor, we wanted to really provide this elevator in a sense that it limits any impact to your current program. So hence why it works really well in this corner, especially for the second floor. We're trying in various areas in the space for the renovation, but this keeps your program on the second floor occupied. Now, to Bill's point, to the survey we did last year, going into option 2, we focused with staff direction on a future gym, focusing on the southeast side still, mainly on the south side. The purpose of this is last year we had the whole development on the east side, and I would have took out all the existing natural habitats and trees and the park there. We wanted to keep that and keep as much parking as you have. Currently it's limited, so with the fitness coming on the south side, expanding out, it gives you growth. And utilizing in conjunction to the recreational park that we presented a few weeks ago, that the existing ball diamond, it being moved over there, gives you an opportunity to utilize that space for infrastructure and parking. And then another huge opportunity as well with the proposed expansion of your current park, for any space that we don't require for parking.
parking or infrastructure for the addition. Going into the floor plan just conceptually. The purple is kind of what we showed with the option A, and we keep that space, but now it would be an expanded lobby space with the vestibule double door entrance up the east side. And we would have stairs coming up and a few ramps are coming up. The reason for that is we're utilizing your existing gates in that space. If you recall being at the community center, the south side, you have existing exit stairs that have about 5 to 6 steps down to your main entrance on the north or further north to the rink. It's almost flush there, so it's plus or minus a meter drop. So we've allowed as much accessibility into this space while providing limited renovation requirements. Going into the lobby space, you have two directions. You can go to the community center to your right or go to your left to the fitness gym. You open up into a kind of reception area, and everything in pink is your fitness gym. You have open space for stretching and mats, a closed space for any program that may be a privatized or a rented space or yoga or any sort of program for fitness. And then in green, it would be your male, female change rooms, locker rooms, and then the darker green is an accessible washroom location as well. And I'll pass it off back to Bill.
So we have looked at high level order of magnitude costs, and just for the sake of this, you'll see in both the estimates, we say total construction cost and total project cost. And so total construction cost is exactly that, what it costs to actually do the construction. It would be the contract amount that you would have with a general contractor to complete the work. The other way of looking at it is if you pick the building up and you shook it, everything that doesn't move in the building when you shake it is construction cost. Project cost includes all the soft costs. So the soft costs include the things that would fall out of the building when you shake it. So all your furniture, fittings, and equipment. So all the exercise equipment, all the desks, the chairs, everything like that. All the AV equipment, things like that. But soft costs also include consulting fees. So that's us. It includes whether or not as a municipality you charge your self-development charges, building permit fees, et cetera. All of that would fall in the soft costs, which is why you see a difference. What we're trying to show here is what is the total cost of the project. And so in option A, we know the roof restoration escalated from the previous estimate that was completed for that work is approximately $1.2 million. We've allocated $500,000 for the elevator and the shaft that needs to get constructed inside the existing building in order to accommodate that. Interior renovations of approximately $500,000. And then the addition that Matthew showed you at $250,000. The power requirements, we're currently estimating at $250,000 to upgrade the building, which gets us to a total construction cost of $2.7 million. We then add a multiplier for now at this high level of 30% for all your soft costs, which gets us to an order of magnitude total project cost of approximately $4 million. And so this order of magnitude cost would fall within the range of the federal grant that you have for the building and would maintain all of your existing program. It would revitalize the roof. It would increase the power and obviously get you elevator access to all floors. And this would be a proper elevator as opposed to a light utility lift in the space. And option B, all the same costs. Of course, now we have the expanded lobby and the fitness space at $3.5 million. We're carrying about $700 a square foot for that right now, which is in the range of a complex addition to an existing building that we're seeing in the market. We've also put an allowance for site work and the park at $750,000. So for the new parking, et cetera. The power requirement maintains the same at $250,000. We get a total construction cost of order of magnitude of about $5.5 million. and a total project cost of around $7 million in order to do the full program that we were asked to look at for option B. So really, what we need to understand is what council's appetite is for one or the other option. There is a caveat though, option B, because of the time frame it would take to do option B. The first step would be for us to contact the federal government and your representative at the federal government to see if we could get a grant extension. We have done that on other projects and have been successful. But right now you're up against a wall with regards to the deadline on the grant. Whereas option A, if that was what you chose to do, we could move on that very quickly and be substantially complete by the grant deadline. So if option B was the desirable option, we would require a motion that would have a first step of confirming with the federal government that we could get an extension to the grant.
So with the option A, B, is there a way of kind of like a phased approach? So if you went with option B, but option A is going to pretty well eat up the grant anyways. And I did talk to Dave Smith about that, and he said we're not the only ones in the province. Since this grant was issued, with the cost of building, it's just went through the roof. So normally you can't overlap grants, but there might be a possibility of, like I say, that option A is going to pretty well eat up the money that we had got for the grant. I think $5 million counting our portion. So I just wonder, is there, like, I really like option B, maybe without the parking lot changes and the ball diamond thing there. So if there was a way to incorporate that, but get on with option A with option B to follow, like, so it's kind of all tied in together. Is there a way of doing that, or does that complicate things?
Great question, Mayor Martin. So the way it has been designed is you could do option A first and complete that work, and option B could be a second phase. So the elevator and the lobby don't move. It would require dismantling part of what you had just constructed in the new vestibule, but pretty insignificant.
So that's what, like I say, that's kind of the way I worded it with Dave Smith, this part, or MPP, but he said, yeah, so that might give you the option that we need to get on with the roof. And it's crazy when you see those numbers, because I remember when Pepsi built their arena, it was only like about $8 million, and this is just a little gym. And you know, some people say, you know, build a whole new arena. I think it's $20 million to build a new arena, so or more, 25. So anyways.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree. Option A this is all stuff that we've been planning on doing for a while. We got grant money. People are waiting for some of these improvements to be done. Council as well. And I agree with you in terms of I like option B. I like the fitness part of it. I think the parking lot and the removal of the ball diamond, that could be a bigger discussion in this community. But anyways, I think what you have here, I think it looks really good. So I agree with kind of where you're going there, is if there's a way we can kind of okay option A, but with phase 2 maybe of whatever, at least the fitness center. And I guess I'll open up the rest of the council if they have any other thoughts in terms of that, you know, as a phase 2. But so that we have a plan moving forward that yes, we are going to do this and try and secure funding, whether it be through grants or whatnot, and let Bill, obviously, if we're going to do that, he's going to have to contact the government as well. So
sure. Okay. Councilor Clement?
So I love option B, obviously. How long would B take from beginning to end, just out of curiosity?
Through you, Mayor Martin, great question, Councillor. If we pushed on that, it would require more approvals. We would probably have to do some due diligence. I'd look to staff for that, in that we would be expanding the site, etc. So I think the due diligence is what would add the time to the project. For the project itself, I could see it being done in a year and a half.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Doherty?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, George. We just got the concept drawings of the ball diamond, maybe what, 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
in order for B to come in effect, we need that project completed, at least part of it, right? Because you're gonna eliminate a ball diamond. Right? So we're not even close to proceeding on with the ball diamond, other than perhaps phase one, because A, we don't have the money, the funds for it. So to me, there is only one option if we want to utilize the government grant and get the roof on, because we're tired of the pails. So to me, there's no question B is the answer, but I just don't see us
So
being there within a period of time.
So with the parking spaces, like the way I look at there's 12 parking spaces being eliminated by doing the way you've designed it there. I'm sure we could find 12 parking spaces somewhere else, if need be across the back of the building, whatever it is, but to get things moving, I think the ball diamond thing, if it's left in there, you know, that might be for another day or another phase, but right now, if you left the ball diamond in there in the parking lot as is and just adjusted the parking lot, that's an option too. I think that's what I'm saying as far as, you know, if we do plan on phase two in there with option B, we can get on with the grant part of it, get on with doing the stuff we all planned on, and to go along with the survey we did, that people spoke and they would like to see a gym. That being said, now it's up to us to figure out how we do that part of it, so.
Certainly, Mayor Martin and Councillor Doherty, we showed the fitness center where we showed the fitness center because it seemed like the best approach. That's not to say that it couldn't move around to the side of the building to maintain the ball diamond. So if you chose to move forward with the fitness center, there would be a reduction in parking. So we would have to work with planning staff to see what that looked like and whether or not that was acceptable, because we would be taking up parking spots and not providing new parking spots. Obviously, this is an occupancy that's increasing the number of people in the building at once. So we could choose to look at that as an option B2, I guess, which maintains the existing ball diamond and just decreases the number of parking spaces on the existing site. In which case you could move forward with the fulfilled program, which includes the fitness space, and look at the ball diamond potentially as a second phase.
Yeah, so for today though, to proceed like that, I don't want to lose this grant, and that's kind of, so I don't want to rush things either, but as long as that option is in there, like, you know, if majority of council likes you know, the B, option B, we could still work on, like you say, on how to incorporate that into it, but knowing that that's the intent. But that would allow us to get this roof done. It's leaking as we speak. I imagine last night it had a good one, but anyway, we need to get on with that, spend that money that was allocated, and figure out how we can do the next phase, the way I look at it, without simplifying it too much. So you got the question?
Body's gonna make a motion. Things along.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we approve option A in its entirety. And then, I don't know, you have to word this, Bob, but move ahead with the fitness center phase of plan B, or option B, sorry. But there's a number of things you already referenced it, and Councilor Doherty, you did too, in terms of if we're gonna leave the ball, especially the ballpark there, that it's probably not gonna be able to go there on the rink, right? It's gonna have to go a different place, and that might be another thing too, that we've discussions with maybe some of the public in terms of, I know there's strong feelings about the ball diamond, the trees next to the arena, about where that addition would go onto that arena. So, but to move, as I said, move things forward, yeah, let's get going with the elevator and the roof. I'll make that motion. But I would like to have in there that we are going to proceed with the fitness center.
So you'd be aware of that as far as, because we are adding parking spaces to this year, last year we approved paving up at the Maths. It's quite a distance from there. But that being said, if you look at where the entrance is, if it had a proper sidewalk down to there, when you look at other arenas, how far you walk. There is an option there for quite a few parking spots up top too, so without getting lost in the weeds there. I think, this motion would work to help proceed to get moving, so. Councilor Doherty?
Question, if we go with A and then decide to go with some form of B, the elevator will still be okay where it is and the entranceway, that won't affect us in any way going forward.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Martin, that is the case, yes.
If we put the building on the west side, that won't affect the elevator in any way or entranceway or nothing. Okay, good, thank you.
So there's a mover, seconder, Councilor Clement. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. I'm just kind of curious, I'm with the option B. I know that we do have a grant and it can be used, we can do the roof, and the elevator now with the other option of looking at another location for the fitness. Would that not better our chances on getting some grants out there if we're approving this now for what we're doing?
One of the problems around grants, if you approve it, like you're gonna do it anyways, you won't get the grant because you've already budgeted for it, so. By leaving it this way, it kind of leaves us that we can proceed with applying for grants for that extra work that we're looking at here. And hopefully, like I say, with the shortfall that we have from the grant that we received, there'll be more understanding that, this was intended in the first place, but unfortunately, the economy, so. Yeah, as long as we have, for the design part of it here, we have the proper direction that it doesn't mess it up later when we want, if we do decide to. So that's all this motion would do. It's not committing us, but it's allowing us to, go to the, get the first phase done. Okay.
And that's my concern with doing option A, because we're not committing on it. I mean, the people have already done their due diligence. You've done the survey last year. They want this gym. So to me, option B is the better choice.
So this is kind of a hybrid of it. It is kind of their best.
Yeah.
It's got both in there, but it's just, because we are saying we're committed to the gym. It's just, we got to figure out how to do it, money wise, right?
Just for clarification, you're okay with getting rid of the ball field in the parking lot? Because that's what option B is.
Yes, I know that's what option B is, but I don't think there's many options when you come to the arena, when you're gonna attach a new building to it. And if we are going to do those 2 baseball diamonds outside of town, I guess I'd like to hear from the public on that, because I think that other part that we're doing outside of town is gonna be beautiful. And if you have 2 baseball diamonds there, it's gonna accommodate all the baseball people. It's gonna have all the amenities. It's gonna have, bathrooms and a place you can buy stuff for whatever. I mean, that's just my opinion, and I would like to hear from the public on that.
So the way that motion is, for you people to do the design, the ball diamond part of it, and that can all still, like, without holding you up on moving ahead, does that?
Yeah, certainly, Mayor Martin, you could put forward a motion that says that you support the full building program with changes that would allow the ball diamond to be maintained and to explore parking solutions with staff.
I already made a motion.
The motion is already made, so.
No, so that's another option. So the
Motion is we're going ahead with the fitness center, and then, there'll be just.
And there's a phase in of option B following further deliberation.
Well, and for, public discussion about whether the parking lot or
And maybe some grant money.
definitely grant money.
So,
Bag of grant money.
okay, so the motion as is, do you want to read it again then?
Yes, the motion is. Through you, Mayor Martin, the motion is to proceed with option A as presented. And with a phased-in approach of option B following further public deliberations by council.
Any questions around the motion? All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Matthew. We'll be in touch.
When's the roof going?
Okay, our next delegation here is. George Surratt.
It's good of me. I'm sorry you read that, Bill. I'm keeping it. There you go. So I was there.
Welcome, Jordy. Long time no see.
You don't want it?
Anyway. Your microphone on so we can hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
There you go.
Actually, I put the pool in, I put a roof over it. Was made inspected. 6x6s. I got it too close to the house. It's 3.5 feet or 2.5 feet is supposed to be 4 feet. So I had to hook it to the house. And that was way back in '07. Now they said I should get an engineer, see if the roof's gonna cave in because I put too much stuff in the pool. It's all open air. There's no sweat. I put 2x6 walls in. Before, when I put the back kitchen on, I had to go get an engineer because my house is wood foundation. Had to put 6x12 steel beams up on top for 7 rafters. Now, come on, the transport could drive up there. It had to be steel. All I liked is, I got so much going on in my life, I'd like to live my life. So now I gotta get an engineer to see if the pool is gonna, what I put in the pool, it's all air, all open, all the way around. And it's been there for near 10 years. I think they should throw it out, but the engineer, I've been talking to him, he never got back to me either. And they built my road up 2 feet, they never even asked me, just come home, all the water was right up in the house.
So we're talking about your road or?
But to stop sooner or later, I'd like to live my life. And after 7 years, I think they should throw it out, I shouldn't have to hire an engineer to see if the roof's gonna cave in.
There is a process we all have to abide by, Jordy, and that's one of them is a building permit and then.
I had a building permit, the permit was done, but when then COVID hit, I thought it was done. The kids tried to take my house away from me, I got to keep the house. I just like, they're done, period, one way or the other, I like, whatever I gotta do with my house. There's a wood foundation, nobody knew what to do with it, I couldn't put the garage there, 2 other ones did. I got a better garage.
So,
And last time I come to put my name in, I sat here all damn day. Oh,
Okay,
you
so-
think that somebody else didn't put my name in?
so our building department is working with you and trying to help you get through what you're dealing with.
How many years are gonna take for the engineer to get back to me? I just like, I got too much stuff going on. I'd like one day to get peace. I'm 83 years old for Christ's sakes. I built that thing for me, not use.
So,
I like to enjoy life.
so the engineer, who,
Hasn't got back to me.
is it your engineer? You picked the engineer?
He's been there once, but he never got back to me yet.
Maybe you should find a new one that's gonna work for you then, I don't know. So all I know is we don't have a lot of say around the building department. They have a code that they have to follow. And one of the things in there is what you're dealing with right now. So the engineer is gonna have to help you out of this.
Right.
And I can't rush the engineer.
So
You'll
I
have
gotta wait for the engineer then.
I'll have to wait for the engineer to get his stamp. That it's, you know, so the township won't be liable if it's not good, well built.
Right, the only trouble with the thing was too close. If it had been 2 feet away or further, I wouldn't have had to do nothing with it. Because it was too close, I had to hook it to the house. And I go down out in the back kitchen, I go to the length of that table, go down 2 steps. I got a sitting room there, another step, and I'm into the pool. That's for my conveniences.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get a hold of them and see what's going on. Nobody else can tell me, so,
All I can suggest.
okay.
Get your engineer to get you through this and then staff will work with the engineer and make things happen. We have to wait for your engineer, that's all.
Well, I'll get a hold of the engineer again then. Okay, thank you.
Okay, take care. All right.
So if you get a hold of you too.
Okay, so I motion to receive the delegation. Moved by Councilor Clement, second by Councilor Doherty, all in favor, and that's carried. All right, our next items here, we have staff reports for information. First item here is building department report for April.
Oh, I'll just ask him later.
Okay.
Travis, he did so.
Yeah, of course, he just. Okay. So when he comes back in. he can ask the question.
It's not.
Okay. See that. The next item is public works info. Public works info, and that's with regard to the granular and hired equipment. Go ahead.
Yeah, just so we've gone through this process then, Pete? Like if we pick who we're using?
Through you, Mayor Martin, the deputy mayor. So this goes out every year. And it's a list of contractors and suppliers that submit their prices for the year. So it goes, so we have a list, we have all their insurance and all their WSIB so that we can choose off that list for each specific job that some have equipment for and some don't. Some have different materials. So it's a year to year, every year it goes out. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item there was with your department update for April. Any questions on that? Okay. And the next one is Public Works and Recreation Department update for April. Parks and Rec, what did I say? Oh, sorry. Parks and Rec. Okay. And then the treasurer has the budget timetable listed there. Any questions around those reports? Okay. Seeing none, motion to receive the staff reports for information, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, and seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, the next item is staff reports with follow-up action. And the first item here is the Cordova Rink concrete pad award.
Josh is gonna join us. I'm not sure if he's quite on
Get
yet.
him on there.
So we'll move on and he'll be there.
Okay. All right, the next item there is the tender for the new tandem truck, Peter.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, the purpose of this report is to obtain council's approval to award tender EW 02404 land delivery of one new axle cab, first full plowing and all spreader.
Right then.
Sorry, just a question. Only one bid, Pete?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. Yeah, we did receive one bid.
So. Okay, so. Council's thoughts, so that's all they need.
Motion to.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. Questions?
Question, is this replacing another truck?
Western Star, it's gonna be replaced with the new this one here. It's a replacement.
Maybe we can answer it now. Then what are we doing with the old truck?
So through you, Mayor Martin, so right now we do have a spare which we utilize throughout the winter months as needed, and obviously in the summer too with the water truck. And so staff will bring another report back, but this new truck is replacing 1446. So staff will bring another report to present to council to sell our spare truck and put this truck in as a spare.
Okay. And delivery on this one, how long, if we award the contract, will it be here for fall or 2016 or?
Through you, Mayor Martin, the word of mouth is we're at least a year and a half out.
Okay, so have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, Josh is on here. So Josh, did you want to come in with regards to your report about the concrete pad that you heard over, right?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. So the purpose of this report is to make a recommendation on the winning submission for the concrete pad at Cordova Rink. A little bit of background here, the tender for the Cordova Rink went out on April 12th. We've received 6 submissions. It closed on, I apologize for that. It closed on May 8th at 11 o'clock. The one that we recommend that we go with, Amazing Construction, they were the only one that was within budget. And in 2024, we had $150,000 allocated to this project. They came in at 146,347.18 minus the refundable HST portion. That brings that down to 131,790.17 .
Okay. So there is a recommendation here. What's council's thoughts? Councilor Doherty?
Motion.
Moving it, second, Councilor Clement, all in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, the next item here is fixed line surface treatment.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, to the members of council. First of this report is to obtain council's direction to award the 2024 surface treatment tender to Miller Paving.
And so, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb and second by Councilor Doherty. Questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next item here is Old Northern Road reconstruction.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, and members of council. Along with us today is Pat from Dual Engineering, so I'll start into the reports. Purpose of the report is to obtain council's approval to award contract number 230-5446, reconstruction of Old North Road. In the recommendation, council approves approval to award contract 230-5446 reconstruction of Old North Road to Corporate Development Services Limited in the amount of $898,937.60, including HST. Council approves the amount of $855,313.15, including contract administration, construction inspection fees and taxes. And that $300,000 in the Canada Community Build Fund that was originally allocated for the 6-line paving project in the 2024 draft budget be moved to the Old North Road project to replace the $300,000 funding currently budgeted from the roads reserve.
Councilor Flagler?
Sorry, Peter, I have one question. If we are moving money that we put in the budget from the 6th line, then where are you getting the 6th line money from to pay?
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. I might rely on Lionel here too, but hey, some clarity on this.
To you, Chair. So originally, when the budget was first developed for review, there was $300,000 for 6th line project coming from the CTPF, or otherwise known as the federal gas tax. So during the course of budget discussions, the 6th line project was scaled back. And so in the end, the $300,000 wasn't needed anymore from the gas tax reserve. So it stayed in the reserve, for lack of a better term. But personally, there was some discussion with councilors at the time, like it's probably better to use gas tax money as it's received. So the thought was that perhaps we could use that money in the Old Norwood project. And then in that scenario, then $300,000 could stay in the roads reserve because we wouldn't need it for Old Norwood Road anymore. So this is essentially just taking the money that was kind of freed up during budget discussions and putting it into Old Norwood Road so that we use up our gas tax money.
Okay, I understand that, but where does the money come from to do the 6th line? Because if we were taking it from the 300,000 gas tax, so where does 6th line money come from?
Through you, Chair, Councillor Flagler, the amount, $200,000, I believe, is coming from the OCIF fund, Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So that was all along going to be its contribution to the project, but the project decreased to the point where that's all we needed.
Thank you, Lionel.
Okay, so. Deputy Mayor Webb?
For you, so I scanned down, I see, the cost. Excuse me. Where are we here? 949, 787. That's construction and HST. Plus whatever that there's some contingency fee, I guess, Pete, 45,000 or something. Right, is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mayor, that's correct, yes, inspection fees and, yeah, admin fees.
So how is Engage getting paid here? But the engineering work.
So through you, Mayor Martin, that is the contract administration and construction inspection fees.
Is it just 45? Is it?
Yeah. All right, so the recommendation is here. What's council's thoughts?
So we need to get on with the long-term care, so I would pass a recommendation, we accept this.
Okay, moved by Councillor Clement that we move ahead with this construction. Second, your seconder for this, second by Councillor Webb, or Deputy Mayor Webb, sorry, but. Question?
Yeah.
Councillor
So we're now going to be coming in the habit when we do an RFP or a contract, is if it's under budget, we're going to move and shuffle money at the same time we're doing it before, because all this money is still in the reserve for roads anyway. Doesn't matter what pail you put it in. So I'm just confused because the first time actually that I've seen that administration fee, and it's in both of them now, it seems to be certain. Why isn't it part of the cost overall? Like, you know, to keep it simple. I guess, and I just don't understand why we're moving money around. It's Old Norwood Road. It's been, tender's been put out, tender's been approved. I just think the other things, and I've spoken to Lionel before, it's a matter of cleaning things up, but I think it muddies the water in there, but that's just.
Through Chair, the council could absolutely leave the funding as is. That would leave the gas tax money in that reserve. And quite honestly, there is no hard and fast requirement to use it within the year that it's received. So it would stay there for the next project that needed that money. So that is, as Councillor Doherty had mentioned, a house cleaning item, but that doesn't necessarily have to occur, and it could still, that $300,000 still could come from the roads reserve if council chose not to use the gas tax money for the project.
Okay. All right then. Okay, so we had a seconder on the way it is right now. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Okay, so you just now said that we don't need to use that gas tax fund for Old Norwood Road. So do you have the money to pay for this, the roads?
Future, in the 2024 approved budget, it was coming from the roads reserve. So yes, we do have the funds.
What is the specifics for the gas tax that you can use it for?
Through you, Chair, it's a pretty broad, if you're referring to what types of projects. So it could be used at a future date or something. If a project came up mid-year, we could use it for that. 2025 budget, it would be still there. So
No, that's what
it's pretty wide range. There's no specific type, like it's not necessarily for refurbishment. It's not necessarily for a type of, Peter would know more about these terms, but there's no specific type of reasons.
All right, some of them are limited, like parkland, you can only use it for parks. If I didn't know what it was for gas active, it had to be roads, so, okay. Thank you.
No, that's a good point, because moving forward, it's a sum of money, but if it's in roads reserve, we can only use it for certain things. If it's in gas tax, it's there's a lot more things we can use that towards, right? And that's the roads reserve, I'm going in roads reserve to keep that healthy. But
so
I don't.
Through Chair, it's wider range, but it's certainly within the scope of transportation. I mean, you could do nothing. You couldn't put it towards a project that's outside of that scope. So it's not necessarily limited in terms of what type of road work, but it most definitely would have to be in that realm, because we actually used it to pay for part of our asset management program as well, because it related to the management of that infrastructure. But
so it couldn't be used for a gym?
What about a parking lot on the gym?
That's what we
No,
Wait a minute, we can use it right up in the next presentation.
why, how is that, how would that not?
Through the Chair, because it's limited to roads and transportation infrastructure.
So what would a parking lot be deemed then?
In their view, it would not be a roads and transportation infrastructure.
Well, right now, the motion is to move replace the $300. How would word it there as far as where we're at with the motion now? Just to make sure.
Yeah. I'll move that.
You're gonna move it. Okay, moved in. So I think we already did that. Moved in second. Okay, so everybody's comfortable with that?
Motion?
What was that?
What was the motion?
Council provides approval to the contract, reconstruction of Old Norwood Road. Council approves the amount of $805,000, including contract administration, construction, inspection fees and taxes. And at $300,000 in CCEF, Canada Community Build Fund, that's what it is, funding that was originally allocated to the 6-line paving project in the draft 2024 budget be moved to Old Norwood Road project to replace the $300,000 currently funded from the roads reserve. So that's the motion that's on the table. All in favor of the motion, and that's carried. Okay. Next item, reconstruction of County Road 48. Spend lots of money to.
Purpose of this report is to obtain council's approval to award tender E-11-2024, the reconstruction of County Road 48, known as George Street. Recommendation, council provides approval to award T-11-2024, reconstruction of County Road 48, George Street to QBC Excavating Services Limited in the amount of $7,160,441.18, including HST. And that council approves the amount of $4,059,085.32 in including contract administration, construction, inspection fees and taxes to be borne by the township. That the additional required funding as a result of the project tenders received being above the project's approved budget be sourced from HBM's OMPF reserve for the amount of $282,007.
I know I had troubles with that number too. So this would finally get, is there a start date for them too? Was there a start date for this?
So they were awarded. Sorry,
for this, with
George Street construction.
yeah, when would this start? Like, would this start soon?
Yeah, essentially, it's a joint venture project with the township and the county of Peterborough. So once council adopts here and the county does the same, it's preparation of agreement and then contractor would be.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Martin, where about is your starting point?
So the way the contract is broke up now, it's a two-part, two-phase project. So it will be this calendar year into the next calendar year as well.
Right.
Um,
Where's the starting point?
what we're looking at is the park
Okay,
moving western.
okay, yeah, well, that's fine, thank you.
So the recommendation here? Yeah, I think it changed to during the process.
Yeah, once the logistics of everything, it made sense.
The other way.
Yeah, I think the drainage changed it. It always controls everything, right?
Sorry, another question. Did we just find out the drainage was different after we've been working on it since 2017?
Yeah, we changed the backyard thing there by moving all of that stuff out onto the road. It was, so we're bringing it off Highway 7 and running it down George Street now, and I think it's running east.
It runs easterly, similar to broadly, it does run easterly as well. What we envisioned first maybe is doing, I think this may be where your discussion was going, was looking at Quebec Street.
That's right.
If Quebec Street were to progress, there is flow that does I guess exit or at the south end of Quebec. But it's at the top end where it connects into George Street. That drainage pattern is kind of hinged upon the easterly portion of George.
Follow-up, if I may. So does that create the difference in pricing now from what it was originally when we changed where the flow is, or was there other circumstance?
I would say the sequencing wouldn't have had an impact on the capital costs.
Oh, okay, then they're higher than they were before. Like our portion seems to have gone up this way.
Yeah, looking at a review of everything, there was 5 bids that I guess had come in on this project, ranging from the 6.3 that we're here now, the high end being just under 11 million. In cross-referencing to some of the preliminary estimates and everything, where we've noticed an increase is material cost. And the unfortunate part, the material cost is associated with the piping. And, a lot of that goes hand in hand. It's a petroleum-based product, as we're all, seeing the rise of fuel at the pumps. That has impacts on the plastics and the manufacturing process. That's largely where we've seen slight increases across the materials.
Yeah, I did talk to a developer that's said his piping has went up 25%.
Yeah.
For just his, so anyways. Okay, so the recommendation is here,
So, sorry, through you, so just for clarification then, because we're looking for 292,000. So the breakdown of the 292, is it, where's the extra cost coming from? Like, is this all piping and costs like that? Is it engineering fees?
Sorry.
I'm just confused.
290.
Like, back to Councilor Doherty's point a minute ago, now I'm just confused with the contract administration and construction inspection. I get that that's your fee, but I'm not sure why it's not just included as dual engineering fee. Why there's some other, I don't know, amorphous definition of what you're doing here.
Oh, so I guess might be wrong in allocations are. I think the 292 is maybe the shortfall of the complete project.
So that would be county as well? Town and county?
No, I believe that's just for the township's portion.
Good.
Yes.
I'm just, what I'm getting at is in terms of trying to follow it, it's like we're in the budget now, so you're trying to find out where the extra cost is coming from, and the way it's kind of laid out is very tricky because it just is. I don't, it's a, like, there should be a line item in here that says dual engineering for this whole project. So whether it's this part of the project, your pre-consultation, things like that, I should be able to look at that, see how much I've paid you, see how much I'm gonna pay you. But what I'm getting at is some of this is like, it's included after in the next meeting. Now I got a different name. It's called contracted. I don't even know who come up with that. Like that's, I don't know what that is.
So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, there's a budget line item of, I believe, 160,000. That was, suggested to be brought forward. So that's contract administration and full-time construction inspection. So that would be contractor oversight, management of the project, and I say boots on the ground.
But that's done by you.
That's done by Jewel.
Dual engineering. That's all I'm saying is, to me, there shouldn't, like, you're the guys are the ones doing it, right? You're obviously doing other work for us here. You're listed in the paragraph before it. So it's just, I won't get into it now. It's just, it's really hard to follow, so.
Okay.
So this is a project we're doing with the county. And we're doing it on a percentage basis. Is it a 50-50 split of part of it? Like ours is 292, back to Deputy Mayor Webb's point. Is the county shy 200 on their approval as well? Like, where is their shortfall on this?
Yeah, so it is a joint venture project. Ballpark, the percentage split works out to roughly 60%, 40%, 60% being township, 40% being the county. A breakdown of those components would have the township bearing capital costs for water, sanitary, storm sewer. County is contributing some capital to the storm sewer. Concrete sidewalk, and then behind the boulevard restorations. The county, under their umbrella, it would be the concrete curbs, the asphalt, and the granular base construction. So again, kind of going back, the unfortunate part is where we've seen pricing increases is amongst the items that unfortunately the township has responsibility for, being the piping network.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a mover for the recommendation.
Gotta get it done.
Okay, done.
Yeah, exactly.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb and second by Councillor Flagler. All in favor? Not carried. Next item. Temporary use agreement. Still with us, Sonia?
You're up.
Okay, Sonia, so go ahead.
Purpose of this report is to present for council's consideration a request for temporary use agreement pertaining to the construction of a new seasonal recreational dwelling. The recommendation is that the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into the agreement with Norman Bruce Casey, allowing him to reside in the current seasonal recreational dwelling during the construction of his new recreational dwelling at 97 Fire Route 38, Concession 8, Part Lot 15, identified as roll number 1531-010004-298, and that the requisite bylaw be passed in the bylaw section of today's meeting. The background on this report is the township has received a request from the owner of the property requesting permission to continue residing in his existing recreational dwelling while he constructs his new dwelling. As per the notice of decision for minor variance A0424, a temporary use agreement to be executed and registered on title to the satisfaction of the corporation of the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen, and the site of the old seasonal recreational dwelling unit would be converted to natural vegetation upon completion of his construction. The existing dwelling will be demolished at the conclusion of the construction period within 18 temporary use agreements are permitted by the municipal act and the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The applicant was a deposit of $1,800, which he has done. And I have attached the agreement and the bylaw and his existing and proposed site plan.
So. Council here, recommendations there. You're already moving it?
Yeah.
Second by Councilor Clemens. All in favor? And that's there. Right. Next item is the electoral award system. Award system, number 23.
Through you, Mayor Martin, council has expressed a desire to review the electoral ward system. So at the end of February, a short survey was mailed in every tax bill that went out. The survey was posted to the township website between March 4 and April 19. We received a record number of responses. 649 submissions were presented to council and provided to the township. And those numbers indicate, the simple question was, would you like the electoral ward system to be changed, or would you like it to remain as is? And the responses were 69% in favor of change. Within that change, there were options. Number one was to have all council members elected at large. Number two was to have the boundaries of the wards redrawn, so there are equal number of voters within each ward. And number three was another option if someone was willing to write in and suggest something different. Overwhelming number of 61% of the submissions approved and supported the electing at large of all council members. So today, this report presents the results and suggests to council to complete the process. We have a public meeting to receive input from anyone who wishes to either be on Zoom or in person at the council chamber to provide one last opportunity for public comment.
Okay, so this topic always draws lots of attention. We do it usually every term. We take a look at it. In the past, these have always been done as part of our regular council meeting. That being said, with the numbers that I'm seeing on the survey, there could be a lot more interest in this one. So maybe the special meeting idea would work. The other part of this is it's always been an evening meeting, so the public can attend if they work. This here is a special meeting anyways, and it is on a Wednesday, which in the future I'd prefer to use Tuesdays. But
So through you, Martin, the recommendation is simply a suggestion to council. The Wednesday was chosen as there's no county council meeting that day. However, council can choose to do this any way they want. If you wish to have it as part of a regular council meeting, we could dedicate a half an hour to an hour of it in a regular council meeting. We can do that if you wish. And otherwise, we can meet at any time or any day that council wishes.
yeah, so this one here has drawn, it seems like more attention than I've seen in the past, so it's probably good to have a special meeting, whether it's on the Wednesday. I just say it's a lot of Wednesdays I designate for county and Tuesdays I designate for town. Every other day is full anyway, so anyways, if it's my meeting has been changed, otherwise I wasn't available to attend. I had a committee meeting that day, so some of us have a lot of committees. So, so anyways, we can leave it as it is. I cleared my calendar for that day.
Okay, yeah, special meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So
Yeah, I just didn't want it to be part of one of our regular.
no, I
meetings.
don't
It needs to
think
be a
it's
separate
approved.
entity.
And like I
You want
said,
to be on motion?
yeah, if you want to leave it at the 9:30, like I say, it's
Yeah, date or time, I'll leave that up to the rest of council and
Up to
staff, just
council.
let me know, but I think we should have a separate meeting
Yeah.
at the rink or
the
something.
last ones that I've seen on these are usually an hour long or so, somewhere in there, but anyways, that's good. Keep it separate. The time is 9:30 working for everyone. I just worry about the public that wants to come to these things, so.
I agree with you on that in terms of I don't know, staff here, but I mean, 6 o'clock, even 5, you know what I mean? 5 to
Yeah.
7, something like that in terms of that, because yeah, we will get more people just to cover off, like we did with the strategic plan.
Exactly.
So
We could do it the day of a council meeting and have it that evening, if you wish. Do it on a Tuesday evening.
Could you do it, not to get real fancy here, but can you do like, if, to your point, if we want to do it as a part of our meeting here on a Tuesday, but then we ran another one from 5 to 7 or whatever, or like to have two, like, you know what I'm saying? That way we cover off daytime and
Yeah,
nighttime.
we could do that.
So, because this is a big issue in terms of changing the voting, so I don't want to get into this. I didn't, I didn't know about it. I wasn't, I couldn't get off work, so if we can make it so as available as possible to some of these people, I think it would help us moving forward.
Through you, Mayor Martin, and to Deputy Mayor Webb, that's a valid suggestion. And I think if we did that, we could do it as part of a regular meeting dedicated, like you said, a half hour to an hour. And if we did it on the same day, following the regular council meeting in the evening, then you cover it all off on the same day and everyone has an opportunity to participate.
I'll just make a motion to just ask staff to proceed and make the plans as how you see fit. But yeah, I agree with everything you just said, so.
Okay, so you can fit it in with the day of the meeting?
Sure.
Okay. Yep. All right. So the motion is that staff will bring the date. Bring the date and time back to a. Or how are you gonna do this? Bob? What do you want the motion to say?
The motion is to have two sessions with the public, one at a regular council meeting and one afterwards that same day. We'll bring forward
the dates,
a suggestion of dates.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be advertised, so we need a little bit of time to advertise that.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's no rush. There's kind of a rush for the meeting, but I mean, as long as we get this done before the end of the summer.
Yeah, and fair, thank you for saying that.
Like you
So,
said, make sure we get it on our website and maybe whatever.
right, and
The rail wants before we do this. So
exactly, that's what I was just going to suggest, and the rail deadlines are, we've already missed it for this month, so if we could put it in there for June and maybe have it in July, that would be perfect.
There'd be more people around too.
Absolutely.
For July would be better, right? So
Perfect, that's great, thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks. So mover for that. Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded. Councilor Flagler, all in favor? And that's good. The next on here is there is no correspondence. No correspondence for information, so it's committee liaison reports. And a few things listed here, and one is the municipal brief for the Crow Valley Conservation Authority. Give you an idea what's going on up there. Economic Development Committee minutes. And then there's several from EOTA. So if anybody wants to pull something from any of that with questions, if not, I'll take a motion to receive them all. Okay, moved by Councilor Doherty, second by Deputy Mayor Webb. Questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right.
Quick.
Yeah.
The quick county update for this week. Is county awards were last Thursday night. We had 3 of our residents received county awards. First was in the business leadership category that went to ZK Construction, which is run by Zach Johnson. Yeah, local young guy, and Zach's done a lot for the community. I guess he purchased the public skating through the businesses for people to skate for free a couple of times, and he's quite active in the community in terms of supporting other ventures. Danella Fraser, who covers our meetings and writes for the rail. She was recognized in Community Volunteer of the Year. I believe that was a category. And then in the county-wide award, we took home with the environmental sustainability award, and that went to Mayor Martin. Had the honor of presenting that to COVID. So did fairly well. So we, the middle of the pack, most of them received 2 or 3. I think Monty only had 1. So HBM held their own in terms of community awards. So they're held every 2 years, and just to let everybody know, in 2 years' time, they will be coming to HBM. So get ready.
Right. So, okay, thank you. So, motion to receive the accounting report. Martin and Kathy. All in favor? That's carried. Yeah. So I don't have any written notice of motion. Is there any oral notice of motion for today's meeting? Other business? I have one thing in other business, with Deputy Mayor Webb, regards to the offset of tourism, the visitors center. I don't know.
I can help explain that.
Please.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin. This is an item stemming from our last council meeting. There was a discussion regarding the funding of students. And the motion was made to discuss the funding of that commitment at this meeting. This item can be deferred if you wish, but we hadn't determined where the funds were coming from in paying for the students. And that
I apologize, and I would like to have, it's funny because I was talking to them this weekend, I'd like to have a little more discussion with one of the members in the chamber. What's gone on there in the past history of said funding, so. I apologize to council for not being prepared for that.
Through you, Mayor Martin, I can answer some of the funding. They only had enough funding last year for one person. They didn't get the two people. They have cut that back every year, right?
Yeah.
So in all honesty, do we really need that open 7 days a week? I mean, a Thursday, Friday and a Saturday, right? And then Sunday, everybody's going home. So I think 3 days a week for one person.
I think that's kind of where it's.
I don't know.
No, because I brought that up. I brought that up before because there always just was the one kid, and then I think the last year or two, I know we have come to two. The scheduling, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, double the manpower, double the cost. I see Sherry's just walked in here, so we're having a discussion here, Sherry. It's been brought up by Councillor Flagler in terms of, do we really need two people in that kiosk?
You don't need.
Through you, Mayor Martin.
Not staff it with one person.
Yes, so I apologize. I was away the last time the report came forward. So a little bit of background. Historically, there've been two individuals that have staffed it. That allowed them to staff the visitor center Sunday through Saturday with 9 to 5 hours, allowing for a longer day on Fridays that corresponds with the farmers market. The staff members typically would be paid 32 to 35 hours per week. And the Canada Summer's Jobs Program has typically been the funding behind it. And most nonprofits appeal to Canada Summer's Jobs. But to earlier discussions, CSJ or Canada Summer's Jobs has over the last 2 years cut their funding. In our Economic Development Committee meeting, Joe Rees explained that he too, on the Peterborough and Kawartha Economic Development Agency side of things, have received less funding. The question was posed, do we need one or two? Last year, they did get by with one resource. However, they couldn't operate 7 days a week. And so what they did was they were operating, I believe, Wednesday through to Sunday, with the exception of long weekends where they would work the Monday. It's not ideal because it does help to have two resources to keep it open the 7 days. Supporting our visitors, promoting to local businesses is table stakes, in my estimation, from a tourism and economic development standpoint. If you were moving forward, you could model what we did last year, but the ideal would be to have two resources covering those.
So, yeah, Councillor Clement had something, and then, yeah, I think we're going to defer it and get some more discussion or get some more answers. So go ahead.
So through you, Mayor Martin. So can you tell me exactly how many people went through there last year?
I don't personally have those reports, but yes, it's measured in terms of number of visitors through the day, what time of day. They analyze peak timeframes that they know from a staffing standpoint.
I have to be honest here. I've been in there a couple of times. Not too busy. I really would prefer to see Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday. you know, we're picking up the buck this time around, not the chamber. I think I'd like to have it relooked at.
Hi, Sherry. Just one question, Sherry. Just one quick question, and I should have asked you this before the meeting. Is there a website for our tourism in this town?
In terms of tourism and economic development, we have a robust site where people are able to see our attractions.
So that could be posted on that door so that people could take a click on their cell phones if they came and it wasn't open. And then it would show everything on there. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Martin, Councillor Flagler, there are lots of things they could be doing perhaps more effectively. My estimation is that they need to work really closely with our economic development and tourism partner, and working closely with RTO8. RTO8 last year wanted to, or I think perhaps the summer before, they wanted to have an electronic kiosk. And that was a standalone unit that actually was placed inside of the visitor center, offering tourism, like a lookup, if you will. The problem at that time was that there wasn't Wi-Fi and there wasn't the electrical hookup for them, or the power to do that. And Brenda Wood pulled that particular kiosk. If you had that, you could actually get by with a resource plus the electronic. Imagine if you entered into the visitor center, you would see a standing unit with a large screen with all of our tourism assets listed, as well as those in the greater area, which is really important because they're providing visitor information, not just with HBM, but for Peterborough County and beyond. And so perhaps there's a way to modify the hours and request that one of the electronic tourism kiosks be placed inside, now that we actually have.
Okay, but I don't think that's gonna help us, though. We're still gonna have a staff member there.
You still have to have a staff member.
That's not what I was.
When you do have people in, it is a challenge to meet their needs when you only have one person at the counter. And I appreciate, if you've been in there, it is quiet. They all seem to come in as soon as one vehicle, you'll have 3 or 4 vehicles in, and that's what some of the analysis demonstrates. But perhaps having the kiosk there, you could get away with having that placed and reduced hours for those higher peak timeframes, which is what Councillor Clementa mentioned. You're certainly Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, Mondays being the travel day.
So for today, we might be best to defer it, gather the information, come back with an educated decision on what exactly what we want to pay for. So, because it is the township paying, it's easier.
Yes.
If you're going to carry it, it's harder to go to the government and say, look at you. No, we're going to carry it this year. It'd be easier to say, that's why we don't have a full-fledged tourist center. So, Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
Part that I'm confused with is we've used the term that it's the second year they haven't paid for it. Tourism. But I remember the last meeting it was presented, it was almost like it was a surprise that they aren't paying for it. And then said, well, they haven't paid for it for 2 years. They've been cutting back. So what's the surprise? We know they're not going to pay for 2 people. So what about a budget item? And
through you, Mayor Martin, just a point of clarification. Last year was the first year that they slashed their program by 50%. And so the Chamber of Commerce was fortunate enough to receive funding for one resource.
This year?
Last year, making the reference, they slashed their funding by 50%. In their application, they applied for 2 with the hopes of they're going back. Because feedback from our representatives was that was sort of a one-off, or at least that was the feeling that we got, that it was a one-off. Asking for 2 with the hopes perhaps of getting 1 and not getting 1 at all. Now, last year, there were a number of different chambers that didn't receive Canada Summers Jobs funding. Havelock was very fortunate to get the one that they did. And I appreciate that this has to come from somewhere in terms of funding. It is an important tourism, especially with the goal of giving them tools like a laptop and phone and things like Wi-Fi, where they didn't have that in the past. They have that now. They were paid for by the chamber.
The other thing to consider here too is that I don't mind helping the chamber. I think they do a fabulous job. But they did just get a grant for close to $100,000, I think, within the last year, right?
Through you, Mayor Martin, they did receive a grant for $83,000 for the fire and ice. And through that grant, they paid for the installation of the Wi-Fi. They paid for a laptop and a smartphone. Those are resources they have now for the students. As well as 6 months, I think it was 6 months of farmer market Wi-Fi for the farmers market, as well as the last year.
No, but I'm just doing, my only point is that that's a lot of money to receive in a grant, and here you are a year later asking for us to cover off $4,000 or $5,000 in student fees, right? Maybe some pre-planning. Right?
Through you, Mayor Martin, you
wouldn't be in this situation.
through the fire and ice, my knowledge of it, because I helped to write the grant application. It had to be dedicated to, you could apply for some capital items, which they did. They did their best with that, including picnic tables and things like that. But you had to be very specific in terms of the jobs that could be created. They had to be specific to fire and ice.
So one last thing in reference here. So Stanley, we just reimbursed the chamber for Wi-Fi. Now we're gonna pay for the students. So I'd like to see some figures about how many people go through there. I really would like to see some more data.
So that's it. So if we can gather, so you're comfortable with making a decision, each of us can take it upon ourselves to understand what the chamber's about. You're the representative at the chamber, are you, Beth?
Yes.
So anything you can bring will help too, and then we'll just make a decision. So a motion to defer this item, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Flagler. Any questions? All questions? Gary?
No, I'm fine.
Well,
How's your hands?
here, I'll have a question for myself. So would you like me to bring back a report from the chamber? Because what I've seen so far, being there and sitting there, I'm not sure really where it is they are going. Because now they're asking for the township to pay for the Wi-Fi. Now they're asking for students. And I'm not sure if the money is there. I'm not even sure if they're gonna fold. That was the last, they want to become a chapter of Peterborough. So I'm not sure what happens there either.
So that's the part, so it's your committee, so you're gonna have most input. You're gonna have most of the information, but we're hearing from the public too, so that's basically ours won't be as valuable as your input.
All right, I'll have one ready for
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so motion to defer, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second, but we already did that, and Councillor Flagler second. All in favor, and that's carried.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna finish this, the bylaws.
We're now
Oh,
fish derby Saturday.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody come to the fish derby.
Well, you're
That's the council.
There's a few on here.
9 AM, free.
Yeah.
Bev's gonna go buy some prizes here.
Yeah,
So
okay.
Kathy can get,
Okay, so
Get the.
yeah, I don't have to. Apparently we got enough. So, thank you.
What'd you get?
Or enough of our residents have come through with donations, so they shouldn't be covering off the cost. So if you don't ask if council is here, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
so these bylaws,
We can go quickly. Yeah.
Holy Bobson already.
so
No, so the first one, Mayor Martin, first one, the amendment to the zoning bylaw, this is item to be deferred.
moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second Councillor Clement, all in favor, carried. You can do them all at once.
Second bylaw is, this pertains to the earlier report in the meeting, 390 Fire Route 87, Real Court Management, stop up, close and convey the lands as per the attached report.
Moved by Councillor Doherty, seconder. Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor, carried. Next one.
Is the all in favor, or are we gonna do a moment?
All in favor.
We do them all.
We do them all.
Let's do them one at a time, all in favor.
Okay.
Okay.
breaking the rules here.
Norman Bruce Casey, this was the item as mentioned by Sonia in her report. Saying it's dwelling during construction.
Moved by Councilor Jordan, seconded by Councilor Clement, all in favor, carried.
And this last bylaw pertains to the agreement with the mill regarding the Peninsula Road, and we, as the township, need to take in the road into our road network. So this bylaw authorizes that. And that will conclude that process.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second. Councilor Doherty, all in favor.
Tired of paying.
And that's carried.
Yes. That's right. Okay.
How long do you expect to close?
Not long.
I think it's, well, yeah, like,
Oh, good. It's the pink copies.
was your coming to that?
Yes, our multiple solicitors invited to attend.
Okay, so there's two ways of doing it here. We can keep moving through, or we can take a break for half an hour. Up to you.
Really get through it.
Well, let's keep going then and see what we can do here.
Motion to extend the time.
We aren't past it yet, so we're okay.
I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't extended. I said if we go past.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to look at that at 1:30.
Okay, thank you. Gosh.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
No,
So,
Parliament.
okay,
So I can email them, tell them we're ready to.
yeah,
So let's take a break for.
let's take a break.
You gotta get.
All right, so we need a motion to go into closed session under section 239(2)(c) for proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, and section 239(2)(f) that is subject to a solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. So motion to go into close. Moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Deputy Mayor Webb, all in favor, and that's carried.
Okay, should resume.
Motion to resume an open session, moved by Councilor Clements, second by Councilor Flagler, all in favor, that's carried. So just motion. Motion to receive the minutes. from close.
No, we don't need that. I think we're just ready to adjourn. No items from close at this moment.
So the confirming
Bylaw.
for today's meeting, moved by Councilor Clements, second by the confirming bylaw, Deputy Mayor Webb, all in favor, carried. And motion to adjourn, Deputy Mayor Webb,
Long time
and
coming.
second.
Made it.
Seconder to the, yeah, okay, Councilor Clement, all in favor, carried, thank you.